Hello, hello, all your beautiful faces and names. Thank you for being here. Such a sweet group, I can tell already. So I'm Lee Warren. I'm going to do a bunch of intro, but I wonder if we could, since we're a small enough group, if we could just unmute and say our names and where we're calling in from, sort of ground us together a little bit. And why don't we start with you, Aline, and Lisa go next.
Hi, I'm Aline Anderson, and I'm calling in from Rutledge, Missouri, from Dancing Rabbit Eco Village.
I'm Lisa Smart from Asheville, North Carolina. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you. Trisha Bear, why don't you go next, and then Lee Barnes after her.
Trisha Bear, I live in Rosie Branch Farms next to Earth Haven Eco Village.
Your internet's a little spotty there, Trisha. I'm guessing it might be just the state of affairs in your rural area. Is that true?
This is true, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead, Lee.
Lee Barnes. I'm from Waynesville, North Carolina, currently in Durham, North Carolina with a dying mother.
Blessings. Blessings. Thank you. You're really in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we do Ellie next and then Trish.
Hi, my name is Elle Taylor.
Elle.
I live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Trish DeGroot. I'm calling in from Hendersonville.
Awesome. Thank you all. Let's do Maria and then Heather.
Mariah Epps and from Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes, thanks, Mariah. Thanks. Great. And Heather.
I'm Heather. I live in Atlanta, which is Cherokee Muscogee territory. I have a little bug on my arm, it seems. Yeah, I think that's it. That's me.
Thank you. How about Carolyn and Jeannie?
Oh yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, good morning for me. I'm the West Coast person, I guess, this morning. I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. Good morning.
And I'm Jeannie McKenzie, and I'm in Weaverville, but during the course of this call, I'm going to end up in Black Mountain. Just...
Gotcha. Gotcha. Let's do Mango and then Mel.
Hi, I'm Mango. My other given name is Christy. Either one goes fine. And I'm West Coast representing from Salem, Oregon.
Great. Mel, do you want to say hi? I think you're frozen. I think you might be a little frozen and you're muted. Let's do Susan and then Linda, and we'll come back to you, Mel. Susan, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm from the Mountain View co-housing community in Mountain View, California. And we are what we refer to as an elder community. We've been in existence for 7 years that we've lived together, and we have already had 3 deaths. But not unexpected, and probably an imminent one coming up as well. The community.
That's enough for right now, Susan. We're going to have more time.
That's it for now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mel. I see that you're unmuted, and then we can scoot over to Linda.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just a little bit going in and out of freeze, but go ahead.
Okay. My name is Mel. Melanie is my whole first name. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm currently in Miami. I'm also a postpartum doula, and my sister just had a baby. So
nice. Nice, thank you. Linda, Landon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda, and I'm in Weaverville, North Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to do a few introductions here, and then I'm going to give us a chance to just do some deeper connection and sharing in breakout rooms. There's a lot of integration in this course because it's sort of needed. But I'm going to keep checking in with you about how much you need and how much you need the whole group. I have my lit candle and my beloved ancestor here, and flowers nearby. So I'm with you in the altar space, which is great. And I will put a link to the web page of mine that you can use. I think, sometimes it's tricky for folks to have multiple tabs open and then get lost. So, don't get yourself all tied in a knot. But if you're able to do that, this is the page we're going to be using a lot. I sent you the sort of links to the documents that you'll be using today, but this is a great one, and it's a private link. It's not public, but you can use it forever because I just keep adding resources to that page. So once you've taken that class, you have full access to that resource page. So I'm going to do a little screen share. And then when we have time for sharing, I will take the screen share off so we can see more of each other's faces, but it also helps us all have visuals and sort of be a placeholder as well. So yes, so this is part one. I usually do part two a week later, but I'm out of town next week. So it's going to be the 17th, which might actually prove to be a really nice recipe, because sometimes a week is a lot for people to try to catch up on doing some of the things they've taken away, and might be actually a nice cushion to have 2 weeks. So I'm going to check in with y'all to see how that feels. So here we are. This is a brave and creative journey that we're on to talk about death, our own and the people we love. And we're here together, breathing the same air on the same whirling ball in space. So we're all alive at this moment, and we can celebrate and savor that right now. Most people find this workshop really engaging and expanding and heart opening. And there's something about the biochemical processes that get moving in us when we talk about death. So if there's any nervousness here, it's all welcome. All the places, all the parts are welcome. But I'm guessing we'll be moving through with each other towards a sense of awe and gratitude, because that is my experience of what death conversation does to us. It opens our hearts. So all of us is welcome in that process. I want to start with a little quote from Rilke, who, is one of my favorite mystics. And nothing will get us in touch with the mysterious and the mystical other than death. So who better to start with than one of the greatest mystics of the last couple hundred years? So Rilke says, "I'm not saying that we should love death, but rather that we should love life so generously, without picking and choosing, that we automatically include it, life's other half, in our love. This is what actually happens in the great expansiveness of love, which cannot be stopped or constricted. It is only because we exclude it that death becomes more and more foreign to us, and ultimately our enemy. It is conceivable that death is infinitely closer to us than life itself. Yet what do we know of it?" So we're about to start a journey of that inquiry. What do we know of it? What do we want to know of it? So just a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. You hear sort of like get my philosophies right out front and my worldview. And I will tell you a little bit about how I got so passionate about the topic of death. First, I want to introduce you to my ancestor altar, which comes from the wisdom of an elder named Soban Fusome, who has passed into the ancestor realm. And in her tradition, and I was a student of hers when she was alive, whoever we love that passes on is what she calls an ancestor. It doesn't necessarily mean someone we were related to by blood, and it doesn't necessarily mean someone that was older than us. So these are just some phrases that I'll be using as any of our beloved dead, she calls ancestors. So I love that phrase, and I use that often. It's a way of honoring and respecting those who come before us, right? And honoring our elders is a big piece of my work to really remember. And so I want to just share who I've been educated by and influenced by. And Soban Fusome, who I just mentioned, is here on the right. She was from the Dagara tribe in Burkina Faso in Western Africa, and did a lot of education in the West. She died in, I want to say 2017, somewhere around there, 5 years ago-ish. And then these other two amazing women who live in my town or in my region, Western North Carolina, and who are part of a Buddhist practice. And Ruth Estranga and Caroline Young for the of the Center of End of Life Transitions, who I've learned a ton from, including some natural death care work. And they'll be coming up sprinkled throughout this time. And just a big shout out to the folks who have trained me. And really the mentors, the best mentors in my life have been the dying. I have lived at a place called Earth Haven Eco Village for 20 plus years. And we had, from 2016 to 2018, we had about 6 deaths over the course of those 2 years. It started in the spring, it sort of went and ended in the fall. We had 3 of those folks die at home. We had all home funerals, all home burials. And it has changed my life, you know, and among many things that have been life-changing, but this has been a pivotal. This is a photo of a few of us around the body of a woman named Kimchi Rylander, who really wanted to make her death an educational experience and opportunity. And so there is a Facebook group that you can, there's a link on my resource page. I'll probably be sharing it with you directly in the chat. She wanted her death to be a process where we could all learn and grow and share. Much like, I don't know if any of you are in touch with this film that's trying to be born right now called The Last Ecstatic Days. There's also a Facebook group for that, where Ethan Sisser wanted his death to be filmed and to be, you know, an educational opportunity for what is possible. So I'm going to tell you a whole lot more about this journey that I was on. There's probably a couple people here who are familiar and were even involved. The house that we're in this picture is a woman named Martha Harris, who left her home to move into an apartment in the eco village nearby so that Kimchi could die in her home, because there was a flush toilet and more handicapped accessible access and a bigger space. And instead of being freaked out, she was honored that Kimchi was able to die in her home. So, you know, we're sort of flipping some of these narratives on their heads, right? And let's, you know, let's be conscious about that as we're moving towards what I call a more death positive or more death literate way of seeing this natural process. So I wanted to share a few of my death philosophies with you all, because this is so grounded in where I come from, right? And the first one is, again, one of those things that flip the narrative on its head, right? Which is, I see that death can be one of the biggest contributions of our lives. It is truly a gift. And I believe that the evolutionary programming in us as we're dying knows how to do it well. Knows how to do it exactly right for us, for who we are. And I also think that evolutionary programming kicks in everybody around us. And it's a gift not only to our process, but to everyone's process. And you'll see more about why I've come to believe that. And it ripples out. The gift is the biggest for us, and then it ripples and ripples out to all the people who are around us and caring for us. So how I approach this process is to think about that. How can we have this last big gift be the best gift that we can give? The second philosophy is that we are pioneering this new culture of positive death. Conscious death, ecstatic death, people have different frameworks, but our culture says it's something to be feared and avoided. And in some contexts, it implies that it's a failure. And with this limited understanding and this limited perspective, of course, we have had a culture of fear, right? So here we are. This is an incredible opportunity and invitation to explore new ideas, new stories, new notions, new experiences, new ways of humanizing and making sacred the death process. So this is, we're in this together. We are all in this together. Just having this conversation is making the process sacred. And then the last piece I have in terms of my death philosophies is what else is possible, right? This sacred inquiry, right? We're living into the mystery of stepping into a new paradigm, a new idea, right? In grief and in celebration. How do we look towards some of the pioneers in this field? How do we look towards ourselves, some of the positive and negative experiences we've had? I often look here towards where birth has come, right? And one of the pioneers of the birthing movement is a woman named Ina May Gaskin. Some of you may know her. She wrote a book in the 70s called Spiritual Midwifery. And she posited this idea that not only could birth be trauma-free and pain-free, it could be ecstatic, right? And to use sort of the life force energy that is moving through us and available to us at all time. And what can it look like to have birth? What else is possible with birth? So I feel that we're in that sort of liminal space right now in culture where I think we can really pioneer some pretty extraordinary things, and we're on that path together. Okay, couple more introductory thoughts here. If you feel drawn, please type into the chat box, what do you think makes for a good death? What do you think makes for a good death? You could also unmute and speak if that's a preference that you have. Connection, community, and surrender. Beautiful. I love that triad, the sacred triad: connection, community, surrender, peace, and closure. I love that too. A loving container. Some knowledge about death and dying, and good support. I love these. Great. Feeding that which has fed us. Wow, good one. Yeah, wow. Being with loved ones, self-aware, minimal pain. Excellent. The freedom to choose. The absence of fear and peace, right? Naturalness, ease, and simplicity. Excellent. I love that. Those are all right answers. They're all right answers, because they're, they're all right answers. Here's how, while the idea of death is sort of in the realm of the mystics and the poets, which we're going to be spending some time there also, but also this is sort of what I see as a little bit of a recipe card, right? Like, we may or may not get the death that we want, and that's going to be a theme throughout the time together, but we can prepare for the kind of death we want, right? And so it's this beautiful de-industrialization of death. I love it. Bringing it home. Oh, that speaks deeply to my heart. Reclaiming, yes, from the industrial systems. I love that. Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of DIY stuff, which may or may not be people's things, but there's a whole spectrum of options. So in one hand, we're going to hold the ideal, right? The ideal death we want. And the other hand, we're going to hold, we get what we get, because that is the truth of life, right? And so if we can do some preparation, both externally and internally, we might be more likely to create something that is a yes for us. Even if the scenario is not what we imagined, we still might be able to create a yes, as much as a yes for ourselves. So, the external preparation are along the lines of end of life planning, after death wishes, financial affairs in order, right? That's what this course is about, right? This is and making sure we're getting rid of stuff. We can all accumulate stuff. And what does it look like to build a death literate community around us? Those are some of the external pieces. That's where we're going these 8 hours together. And I also want to say that internal preparation for death is just as important, right? And that's the topic of another course that I teach with a dear friend, Mary Lane. I'll tell you about it in this class, but we have a 4-week class that we have titled with 4 topics that we think are crucial, pivotal to the internal preparation, is letting go, soulfulness, presence, and learning to receive, right? So that's a different conversation, and a sort of sister program to this. And as you think about all these external preparations, you might come to the place where you think, oh, right, yeah, that's a really important step for me, is to look at the internal process as well, however you do that. It might be contemplation and prayer for some people. It might be different language, but that's the sort of meta umbrella. So what's the outcome when we externally and internally prepare for death? Like, what is that outcome? Just sit for a minute. You don't need to put it in the chat. Just sit on that question. That's sacred inquiry for a minute. What's the outcome when we prepare externally and internally for death? You can make some notes to share with yourself later, or with a partner. A few of the things I've jotted down, and it's certainly not a comprehensive list, but some of the outcomes include that our loved ones know what to expect. It gives people around us a roadmap. Honestly, it gives ourselves a roadmap. If we're not fully aware or remembering, or we're emotional, it helps reduce anxiety and conflict. Because we're guided by these beautiful intentions that we made in sort of a sacred space, right? These are guideposts. And then the biggest piece that I see, that I love, and you all might have more to add, is that when the time comes, when our external affairs are in order and our internal process is prepared, we can devote our attention to the liminal, to the time out of mind, to the in-between place, because it's a magical place, that in-between place. And we want to get more comfortable to go there and be there. That's part of what's going to have us have a more positive experience, right? So these are the few. Anybody want to share one that they came up with the group? Like, what do you think is the outcome of externally and internally preparing for a good death, for death in general?
Well, for me, I'm watching my mother, who prepared really well in many ways. She's also in the process of dying. And I see in her what I want to see for myself is she can release at such a profound level that she can connect to what is her experience of home, what she calls home. We all have a different way of looking at it, but because she doesn't have to worry about all the mishigas, she can just release to the bigger process. And it's been really beautiful to watch that from her, and I hope for the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here now, because she's, inspired me to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So Jeannie says easeful transition, and Mel says it allows you to just be. Yeah. And, certainly those things can happen without preparation. But my experience is it happens maybe more fully, more satisfyingly, more maybe in a little easier way when we do have some preparation in advance. Great. Okay, so I want to turn you all towards each other for a few minutes, and I had asked you to bring a beloved, a photo or an image or some kind of memory of a beloved dead. This is I usually ask at my ancestor altar, like, who wants to come and be part of the class today? And my friend Chuck was like, me. So I included him. It was his birthday last month, and he also died right around his birthday, so 5 years ago. So this is Chuck Marsh, and a dear friend, and a big influence in my life. And so the prompts for you when you go to a breakout room is to share a beloved dead, how this person's life influenced you and how their death influenced you. So I'll just share a little bit. We're just building the muscle to talk about death, right? We're just having this death literacy conversation. So this person shaped my life in so many ways. He was a permaculture teacher and a founder of the eco village that I joined in the 90s, and a horticulturalist. And I was just last week at the beach, and I had been to the beach with him, I don't know, 20 years ago. And he introduced me to this native holly, which has caffeine in it. It's this beautiful Yaupon holly. And I had such an incredible feeling of him when I was with this Yaupon holly, because I love this plant, and it's one of the only plants that has caffeine in the United States. And I was so grateful for how he influenced my life, and really felt his presence. And then how his death shaped me is many, many, many fold. And there were some really positive pieces about it, and there were some really hard pieces about it. And so when you're sharing, like, all of that is welcome. There's no need to have a judgment about how death and life have been. So just give me a minute. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna do the breakout rooms. So let's see.
Lee, I just have a quick logistical question before you plonk us out. I periodically have tech issues, and it sometimes freezes, and I get on a Chromebook, and usually that works fine. Do you hear a little doorbell when someone is in the waiting room?
Yes, I should.
Okay.
You should. I think I do.
Okay, because my things froze. Fortunately, it wasn't Zoom, which is a shock. And I tried to get back in on the Chromebook, but I think you didn't see, or it didn't make a noise. So I just would hate to miss connecting with these humans and hearing from you.
At one point I did see, I did see Trish came back in, but you're right. I didn't see an announcement from you. That's great.
Okay.
I'll keep an eye on.
Okay,
Try
all
our
right.
best. All right.
Great.
I think I have everybody in a 2-person room. So let's see. I think I'm going to give you 6 minutes with a 1-minute callback. So as we say in community, just share the cookies, to keep time, and have each of you take half of that time. And your task is to talk about a beloved dead, how their life influenced you, how their death influenced you. And we'll see you back shortly. You good, Heather? I don't know if you're still here or if you're in split places. I see at least one of you yourself here. Hey, did Heather not show up here, Mariah? Okay. Okay, admit. Okay, I'm gonna admit her. I'll be right back, or I'm gonna send her back. Okay. Great, there you are, Heather. I'm gonna send you to Mariah. I'm gonna send you to room 2.
I have no.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone want to share? Okay, well, we can carry on. There's lots of good times for sharing. Okay. Ellie got bumped out, and so we ended up sharing together, and we had just a perfect time for her to share her story. I love when that happens. Synchronicity. Okay, so I want to start back with this, which is a quote from Brene Brown, which is every single person has a story that will break your heart. And if you're paying attention, many people have a story that will bring you to your knees. Nobody rides for free. So this is an invitation to compassion for the human experience. So some of my intentions for this workshop are to introduce you to a whole bunch of resources to help build comfort with this conversation, to encourage contemplation, ongoing contemplation about death, our own and others, to offer what I hope is inspiration, to encourage you to start and finish your paperwork if that's in the cards for you, to identify some next steps, that I give a checklist for, really getting clear on what's wanted and needed, and dates and other things that can be helpful, to build community and to enhance all of our death literacy and death positivity. Those are my intentions. You can, jot down an intention or have your own intentions or share some of these intentions. We're going to have a blend of education and interaction, because what I know about adult learning styles, especially with a subject like this, is that integration is the name of the game. I'm not gonna be throwing a bunch of stuff at you, although there's that too, but hopefully there'll be enough time to process and integrate. And so here's an invitation. All of us is welcome. We're embracing the whole entire spectrum of human experience. And some of us may have had a recent loss. Some of us may be losing someone. We just heard from 2 people that their moms are dying. Some of us may be in a dying process ourselves, whether we know it or whether we don't know it. We all are on some level, but someone might be in an active dying process. Some of us may be, out of sight, out of mind of all things death related, and that's okay too. So we can be joyful and celebratory and grieving and struggling, and all of it is welcome. I trust us to find a way to hold it all. I really do. Because in all of us, there's sort of a wise and present person. And when we create this sort of container of sacredness, we know how to be. So let's be present. This portal is a pretty magical place. And so inviting in the reverence and the mystery of it all. Just a little bit about the schedule and the agenda today. It goes really fast. I want to encourage you to take care of yourselves, get up, stretch, eat, pee, do whatever, turn your screen off, roll around on the floor, do whatever you need to do, because it's a 4-hour period of time and it's got to be sustainable for you. So take care of yourself. And we will have a break, although it's a little bit shorter today. I'm going to keep it to 20 minutes because I have a guest speaker that you're going to love and you're going to want as much time with her. And there's just a lot to do. So in and around that 20-minute break, do what you need to do for self-care. I think these 2 bookends, these 2 4-hour chunks are really helpful. And honestly, it's still an introduction. Even though we're spending 8 hours together, it's still an intro. We could do this over and over and over. And that's why I offer, return students have a much lower sliding scales. Like, take it as many times as you need to as a refresher. Sometimes it takes us that. So here we are. We're going to do wish 1 and wish 2 today. We're going to have a break. We're going to do this addendum and checklist. My friend Karen Sanders, who's a patient advocate, is coming at 5, and then we're going to spend some time wrapping up, doing some buddy assignments, and then closing at 6. I'm willing to stay after for a little bit. Folks who need to process or have questions, and then we're going to have a network of how to support each other for the next 2 weeks. What else? The agenda for next week is full. It's rich. In 2 weeks, the 17th, we're doing the rest of the 5 wishes, more addendum, lots of other paperwork. We're going to talk about after death options, a little bit about financial stuff, and then how to create a death positive community. And I have 2 guests. I'm trying to like, oh, I love these people that are coming in and bringing their voice, and I want to pack them all in there, but it makes the time shorter. So we're going to juggle it as best we can. And I think you're going to love them. All right, so here's any questions so far. Let me just stop there. That's all intro stuff. We're about to sort of head into the sort of guts of it all. Any thoughts, any questions, any sharings at this point? Anybody hanging in there? Feel free to reach out if you have something you want to say or share. Let's love it to be interactive. It's a lot, and hopefully it's not too much to be present with. Okay, so here's a David White quote. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. It's a great place to start, to realize how alive we all are in this moment. We don't know about the next moment, but in this moment. Okay, so here's some overview on categories of end-of-life paperwork. And these are rough, but it helps give a framework because sometimes this can be overwhelming and the words are endless. So I'm putting 3 columns here. The first column is a living healthcare, general living healthcare, right? And it's sometimes called living will, advanced care or advanced life directives, the 5 wishes, the healthcare power of attorney, the healthcare agent, and then more specifically, these forms, these do not resuscitate, or these most forms. This whole column of things, to just make it super, super simple with all these different words, is how do you want to be guided if you're at the end of your life, you're still alive, and you can't be making decisions for yourself? Right? So you're still alive, you're towards the end of your life, there's people caring for you, and you want to leave instructions about what you want that to look like. That's this whole category of paperwork. Living will, advanced life directives, end of life directives. That's that. Then there's a whole nother category of paperwork called after death care, right? This is like all the things we need to think about when we want to think about what's happening to our bodies. And then there's a whole third category of financial stuff, which we're going to touch on briefly. Okay, any questions about that? We're going to be working with the 5 wishes and some other stuff in this column. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because it might be confusing, but the majority of the time today is going to be spent on what do we want when we're still alive, but we can't necessarily make all these decisions for ourselves. Okay, great. So today we're doing wish 1 and wish 2, we're doing the addendum, and we're doing the checklist. So I want to actually encourage you. I need to run and get my other 5 wishes. I have the wrong one. I'm just going to run downstairs and get the right one so we can start to read it. But if you could pull this out, the ones you've printed, and we're going to take turns reading this booklet, and you can also check out the resource link that I shared in the chat. And there's more resources there. So give me 2 seconds to run and get my actual paper booklet, because I think that's going to be easier. Okay, so I love hearing other voices besides mine, and it's a great opportunity for us to share share the spotlight and also share the reading process. If you hate reading out loud, or you don't want to, or whatever it is, just when I call on you, just tell me pass. That's fine. And does everybody have this in front of them, either a digital copy or a paper copy? Does anybody not have this in front of them? Let me ask it that way. Does anybody not? Okay, I don't think I see any hands. Okay, great. You don't, Ellie?
Yeah, I have a digital, but I have to figure out how to share the screen with.
Yeah. Okay,
Are
so
you
I'll call mine first.
Are you going to turn the pages on the one you have on the screen?
I am, but you're not going to be able to see it that well. It's sort of like a placeholder to sort of show people where we're working from. And to even make it a little more complicated, they upgrade this booklet. And so sometimes the page numbers don't exactly line up from the one I have laying to the one I have in my hand, but we'll do fine. It's close enough. So Mango, are you willing, please, to read out? I'm on page 2 and it says 5 wishes at the top. There's an italicized paragraph and then the what is 5 wishes. Can you read those things at the top there?
I can read that as clearly as I can see it on my screen. I was not able to print anything. When you asked if anybody does not have it, I only have it on the screen because I wasn't able to print. So
can you see it or should I
see it? Okay, I'll give it a whirl. Yeah. 5 wishes. There are many things in life that are out of our hands. This 5 wishes document gives you a way to control something very important: how you are treated if you get seriously ill. It is an easy to complete form that lets you say exactly what you want. Once it is filled out and properly signed, it is valid under the laws of most states. What is 5 wishes? The 5 wishes is the first living will that talks about your personal, ceremonial, and spiritual needs, as well as, it's really blurry on my screen.
Let me call on someone else. Thank you, Mango.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I'll just back up and say the cover, you should put your name on it and your birth date, because I end up having like 5 different people's 5 wishes in my folder. And if I don't have names on the front, I don't know whose is whose. So that's always helpful. And just to back up one quick second, and we can carry on from where. This is a fabulous resource. Most everything is free on their site. If you wanted to order an actual booklet for yourself, it's like $5. And if you get 25 or more, it's like $1 each. And you can have a party where all your friends can fill it out. So it might be fun to do that. And this is an international organization that is really well known. I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons of using 5 wishes, but we're going to at least start here now. So Mariah, would you be willing to read that whole what is 5 wishes and how can 5 wishes help you and your family section?
Sure, and I was able to print it out, so I have a copy.
Great.
And I also have one that I've completed earlier. So what is 5 wishes? 5 wishes is the first living will that talks about your personal, emotional, and spiritual needs, as well as your medical wishes. It lets you choose the person you want to make healthcare decisions for you if you are not able to make them for yourself. 5 wishes let you say exactly how you wish to be treated if you get seriously ill. It was written with the help of the American Bar Association's Commission on Law and Aging and the nation's leading experts in end-of-life care. It's also easy to use. All you have to do is check a box, circle a direction, or write a few sentences. You want me to continue?
Yes.
How 5 wishes can help you and your family. It lets you talk with your family, friends, and doctor about how you want to be treated if you become seriously ill. Your family members will not have to guess what you want. It protects them if you become seriously ill because they won't have to make hard choices without knowing your wishes. You can know what your mom, dad, spouse, or friend wants. You can be there for them when they need you most. You will understand what they really want.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Lisa, could you read that last part there at the bottom, the how 5 wishes began, and then the one on the top of the next page, which is who should use 5 wishes? You are mute, love.
Sorry about that. There we go. Give me a second. I also have a digital version. Okay. For 12 years, Jim Towie worked closely with Mother Teresa, and for 1 year, he lived in a hospice she ran in Washington, D.C. Inspired by this firsthand experience, Mr. Towie sought a way for patients and their families to plan ahead and to cope with serious illness. The result is 5 wishes, and the response to it has been overwhelming. It has been featured on CNN and NBC's Today Show, and in the pages of Time and Money magazines. Newspapers have called 5 Wishes the first, quote, living will with the heart and soul. Today, 5 Wishes is available in 23 languages. Who should use 5 Wishes? 5 Wishes is for anyone 18 or older, married, single, parents, adult children, and friends. Over 13 million Americans of all ages have already used it. Because it works so well, lawyers, doctors, hospitals, and hospices, faith communities, employers, and retiree groups are handing out this document.
Oh my God, you sound like a voice actress.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I don't know if you've ever been told that before, but I was like, oh, I want to listen to a whole book from
thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, so the next section is about the states that it is honored in. And if your state is not on there, we can talk about that a little bit. And then the bottom section talks about how do I change it, and what is true for all wills, living wills, durable powers of attorney, all that stuff is the one with the most recent date is honored and everything else is not, right? And so destroying copies, you know, anything that's updated is the most recent will be honored. That's legally how these things work. Okay, so what are the 5 wishes? So we're going to do wish 1 and wish 2 today. And you're thinking, gosh, why is it going to take all this time to do wish 1 and wish 2? Because they're the hardest wishes. And you'll see. So the first wish is the person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't. The second one is the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. And then the next 3 wishes are more, I don't know, comfort care. So the next one, third wish is how comfortable I want to be. How I want people to treat me is number 4, and what I want my loved ones to know is number 5. So we're going to dig in to wish 1, and you'll see why it can be a little complicated. But for me, this is page 4. I don't know where some of you are. And let's see, Trisha Bear, are you able to do some reading? The first section there, the title, and then all the stuff that's in italicized.
Yes, if y'all can hear me.
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, wish 1. The person I want to make healthcare decisions for me when I can't make them for myself. If I'm no longer able to make my own healthcare decisions, this form names the person I choose to make these choices for me. This person will be my healthcare agent, or other term that may be used in my state, such as proxy, representative, or surrogate. This person will make my healthcare choices if both of these things happen. Number 1 would be my attending or treating doctor finds that I'm no longer able to make healthcare choices, and another healthcare professional agrees that this is true. If my state has a different way of finding that I am not able to make healthcare choices, then my state's way should be followed. And then do you want me to go on and read the bottom part?
Yes, please read the bottom part. And then Trish DeGroot, if you want to read the next page when we get there, that'd be great. Go ahead.
Okay, picking the right person to be your healthcare agent. Choose someone who knows you very well, cares about you, and who can make difficult decisions. A spouse or family member may not be the best choice because they're too emotionally involved. Sometimes they are the best choice. You know best. Choose someone who is able to stand up for you so that your wishes are followed. Also choose someone who is likely to be nearby so they can help when you need them. Whether you choose a spouse, family member, or friend as your healthcare agent, make sure you talk about these wishes and be sure that this person agrees to respect and follow your wishes. Your healthcare agent should be at least 18 years or older, in Colorado, 21 years or older, and should not be your healthcare provider, including the owner or operator of the health or residential or community care facility serving you, an employee or spouse of an employee of your healthcare provider, serving as an agent or proxy for 10 more people unless he or she is your spouse or close relative.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to talk about this, but Trish DeGroot, would you read on page 5, it is for me, the top sentence, and then the left, the 4 left bullet points there?
Sure. I understand that my healthcare agent can make healthcare decisions for me. I want my agent to be able to do the following: make choices for me about my medical care or services like tests, medicine, or surgery. This care or service could be to find out what my health problem is or how to treat it. It can also include care to keep me alive. If the treatment or care has already started, my healthcare agent can keep it going or have it stopped. Interpret any instructions I have given in this form or given in any other discussions according to my healthcare agent's understanding of my wishes and values. Consent to admission to an assisted living facility, hospital, hospice, or nursing home for me. My healthcare agent can hire any kind of healthcare worker I may need to help me or take care of me. My agent may also fire a healthcare worker if needed. Make the decision to request, take away, or not give medical treatments, including artificially provided food and water and any other treatments to keep me alive.
Thank you. Aline, would you be willing to read the next column, which is for me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 bullet points there?
Yeah, starting with C and approve.
Yes.
See and approve release of my medical records and personal files. If I need to sign my name to get any of these files, my healthcare agent can sign it for me. Move me to another state to get the care I need or to carry out my wishes. Authorize or refuse to authorize any medication or procedure needed to help with pain. Take any legal action needed to carry out my wishes. Donate usable organs or tissues of mine as allowed by law. Apply for Medicare, Medicaid, or other programs or insurance benefits for me. My healthcare agent can see my personal files like bank records to find out what is needed to fill out these forms. And listed below are any changes on my healthcare agent's powers.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to have things to share after we just connect and talk for a minute. But I wanted to sort of see everyone. So let me just say this about the 5 wishes. You're going to start to notice with end of life paperwork that redundancy is a good thing. And redundancy is a good thing because different people want to hear and experience and receive things in different ways. So I'm just going to say that, and that's going to come a little bit later as well. So we're going to do more than one thing. We're going to review more than one thing, and it's going to look redundant, and that's important. That's good. So that, let me just plant that seed right now. And secondly, I will say that the 5 wishes is a really it's a beautiful and easy to use template in which to enter this conversation. They've done a really great job putting this booklet together so that the vast majority of people can really understand and resonate enough with what's said here. That being said, you might be like, I don't like that word. I don't like that phrase. That doesn't work for me. And that is important for you to listen to those voices in you, right? Like, this may not be the template that you end up using in the long term, but it's a really great doorway to enter to understand what we're trying to get at. So I just say that to you. They encourage that also in here, which is cross out anything that you don't like, and they leave some space for you to write in at the bottom what you may want to say differently. I have a whole 5-page addendum to share with you, which is an addendum to these 5 wishes, which is like, this is what I actually want to say, right? So don't feel limited by this, but let's, I really have a lot of gratitude towards this as a starting place. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so that being said, the healthcare agent is sometimes the most tricky conversation to start to have in our lives, right? Because we approach death as I don't want to burden anyone, then it starts to feel heavy. But if we could even now start to think about what could it be like to imagine that this could be a gift for someone in our lives or someone's in our lives. How I have approached the healthcare agent is to form what I call a death care team. So it's not one person, it's a team of people. And that people love this and they love thinking about it in this way so that it's not landing on one person, right? They give you 3 choices here. They have your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice. And that's sort of the legal way of doing things. If the first person isn't available or, happened to have died in a car accident that you're also in, or something along those lines, that there are then other people to go to. When I've approached this as a death care team, we each put each other's names in these slots, first, second, and third, knowing full well that the whole team is a backup to these people who are on the legal front line. Does that make sense?
Linda, can I ask, is there a difference between healthcare power of attorney and healthcare agent?
It's the same thing roughly, although these are different forms and different organizations are going to want the different forms. So yes, you're there. This is a good question. We're going to come to it in a little bit. So let's just sink in for a minute, because sometimes people have some anxiety about this, like, oh my God, who, right? Who on earth is going to do this for me? So let's be spacious with that question. And let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of the kind of healthcare. What are the characteristics or the personality traits that you might want in a healthcare agent? Let's start there. What are some of the things that matter to you without putting a person's name on it yet? Like, what are some of the things that really matter, like qualities and characteristics? Anybody want to share thoughts about that? Yeah, Lisa.
Well, someone who thinks critically and openly about the medical world and understands some of my attitudes. I mean, gratefully, my daughter, who's almost 30, and I are very attuned about balancing what traditional medicine has against what it doesn't, that kind of thing. Do you know anything?
You said 2 really important ones, and I'm gonna unpack them a little bit. One is to know the medical system, and 2 is to know what I want. Right? Really good too. Linda Landon writes, stable and grounded and level-headed. I love that. What else? What else are the characteristics that come to mind that you'd really, if you could like wave your magic wand and have the perfect composite of a person there? Assertive and hold boundaries. Yes. This is the first of many conversations we're going to have about this, but a certain fierceness, because the hospital institutions are often, their charge is to keep you alive, right? That's what they do. That's what their sort of charter is, to keep you alive at all costs. They don't get much training in death care. They don't get much training in the reverence of decline. They don't get much training. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a fight all the way along to ensure that the beloved gets what they want, right? So a fierceness, assertiveness, not always the same characteristics as someone you want holding your hand, right? Like this starts to become tricky, right? How do we have gentle and heartful and fierce, right? What else? What else is there for folks? Characteristics.
someone who really believes in integrating death as part of life.
So someone who holds your values, that can see the world in a similar way. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Preferably nearby. That's another great one, Linda. Geography is a big deal in these situations, isn't it? Geography is a big deal. What if there's a decline? What if there's a 3-month decline? What if there's a 3-year decline? Where is someone across the world? Really good, really good. Someone to hold my best interests at heart. And do they know our best interests? Do they understand our best interests? Have we had those conversations? Really good. What else? What other characteristics? Willingness to hold the role, right? Are they willing? Absolutely. Like, hell no, get that stuff away from me. Someone be like, love you. No, thanks. Great. Yeah, really good. What else?
I think you have to consider the obligations that that person has to other people beside you.
Yeah. You mean if they have small children, or if they have someone else they're tending that's dying, or if they have other big obligations in their lives? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or if they're healthcare power of attorney or a healthcare power agent for a lot of other people in their family or something. They just might not have the bandwidth.
Right. They might not have a bandwidth for a number of reasons, their own illness, any number of things. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you start to see, and I'm not pushing the death care team thing, but I've heard from so many people how much of a relief that is when they hear about it, because it doesn't leave people feeling like they have to find all of this in one person, right? That we can, and it sort of harkens back or forward or sideways to some wisdom traditions. This is maybe how we used to do it, right? People would play different roles. Lisa.
One thing that came up with my mom just recently is that I'm her POA, I'm her daughter, financial POA, and her healthcare agent and I have different ideas about what to do. And so that's something else that I am going to consider, that to make sure that the financial POA or who else, because it's been really painful to be in this territory with my mother's healthcare agent.
Wow, big stuff. Yeah, so POA, just to remind folks, is power of attorney. There's a healthcare power of attorney that makes decisions about these living will kinds of things. And then there's often a financial power of attorney that has access to the funds. These aren't necessarily the same person, although they could be in your life. And I'm hearing from Lisa a situation where that's challenging and causing some conflict. I can see in other situations where that would actually be helpful, right? So these are the kinds of things. I just want to share this one screen, and you can take a screenshot of it if you know how to do that, or just take a picture with your phone. Some of the things that you all have said are also on this slide, which is what are the characteristics of a healthcare agent? Available and willing, that's been said. Available and willing. Big question. Familiar to the self and the family, right? And then what Lisa's saying is, what if a healthcare power of attorney doesn't even know the person's children or the person's friends, right? This could be a bit of a rub. Someone you know and trust. There's a level of comfort and familiarity there when you know and trust them. A geographic location consideration. I know some people who live in Europe or another part of the country, and they have 2 different sets of paperwork for these 2 different parts of their lives. Really interesting. The ability to be fierce, or as Tricia said, assertive with medical institutions. Comfort with the death and dying process, right? You don't want to be lying on your deathbed trying to take care of your healthcare power of attorney because they're freaked out about death. That does not seem like a good situation. Capable of making decisions. Literate with medical terminology, medical issues. There's other ways to dress that one though, so it doesn't have to, like there's this patient advocate thing we can talk about. Ability to hold the process is sacred. and understands your priorities. That one is huge, huge. So go ahead and take a screenshot or a phone snap or whatever here, because I think if we need to add some to these, we will. But let's not put a whole lot of pressure on ourselves to get all of this in one person, because I just don't know that it's possible. But what does it look like to have, choice 1, choice 2, and choice 3 have whole different pieces of this? I mean, I've heard many, many times about, hey, I don't think my spouse is the best person for this. I want my spouse to be my emotional support. I don't want my spouse dealing with XYZ of the details of the hospital. But obviously, whoever the healthcare power of attorney is would need to include the spouse. So then that takes on a whole nother level of interpersonal sort of savvy, some interpersonal savvy, which not everyone has. All right, so I think right now what I'm going to do is send y'all again into some breakout rooms to digest this. And the questions for you have to do with who comes to mind? Who comes to mind for you? People that pop up immediately, people that are maybe secondary choices, who are potential backups for you. What do you imagine a conversation with them to look like? Or what are the pros and cons of these people? Or what of this list is going to be hard for them and easy for them? And I can put those questions in the broadcast, so you don't have to remember them, but it's more just like, what arises for you when you think about healthcare agent, a healthcare agent, someone that would be walking with you in times of vulnerability? Any questions? Okay, let me get the breakout room set up. Okay. Susan, I see that you have 2 people there, so I'm going to put you in a room by yourself and just the 2 of you can talk to each other, okay? All right, I'm thinking like, I don't know, 7 minutes with a 1-minute callback. How is that feeling in terms of amount of time? Too much, too little? Feels okay? Okay, great. Welcome back. You doing okay with your signal, Mel?
I think so.
Great. All right, who wants to share? Now is an opportunity to hear from each other about your thoughts, and it helps the whole, helps us all sort of think about this stuff.
Well, the first thing that came up in our conversation, or one of the strongest things, was that it really is a process that demands a lot from people. You're asking a lot from people, and that it's really so much. I feel like it should be part of the culture that we have this be part of people's life work, like planning birthday parties, like, it's like something you want to integrate into life in a way, being part of a team like that. And that it's just a very interesting process in thinking about considering it with people being close by, people far away, and how you could combine that. And very much how, the wish would be that it does become part of people's thinking. It's just something that we do in life. It's not separate from things.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Mariah. So I'm hearing it's a lot to ask. And, how do we think about this, not only for our individual needs or for the people we love, but like from a culture change perspective, like what is coherent here? What is wise? What makes sense as we sort of find our way towards more sense making? Who else wants to share? Heather, Heather and Lisa, I see you unmuted. Go ahead, Heather.
Sure. Because my dad died when he was young and I was 17 or youngish, we've been talking about this as a family. We've had all our papers in place, but some of this reflection piece of who might be this death care team is not something. They were just kind of like, your spouse will be the default, your sisters will be the backup kind of thing. And that's how it has been for the last 20 years. And it has occurred to me that could look different in this conversation. And the word fierce was really resonant for me. And I have a good friend who's a midwife, and she is extremely fierce. And I think that she would be delighted is maybe not the right term, but maybe to be part of a team. And I feel like that team just like totally takes for me, the edge off that request. And all those folks that I'm thinking of, with the exception of them, were athletes or are athletes. And so this concept of being part of a team would be really powerful.
I love that. Yeah. So I'm hearing that this is not a new idea in your family because of an early death in your life, but that the sort of the structure that you've had it has now maybe been expanded, and how to think about that in the team approach, and how for people to be, it takes the edge off of the feeling of like, oh, this is a lot to ask, when you think about like, well, what if we did this together? So great. I love that. Thank you. And that, folks who have experienced being on a team, but that does bring up the question of like, can you start to see that these conversations are needed in your life? Can you start to see how having these conversations, and one approach to that might be, listen, I have homework from this class. I have a short list and a long list of potential healthcare agents. Can I talk to you about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about exchanging this? What do you think about a team? What do you think about death in general? Like, just to, you can use needing to do the homework for this class as an opportunity to start having these conversations with people in your life. How do folks feel about that? Can you start imagining some of that? Lisa.
And I'm imagining you're going to talk about cultivating and developing death care teams later, or is this the time to talk about it? Because I'm so curious as we're getting into this topic. I'm like, holy moly, that makes sense, right? But
I've been thinking about doing a standalone class, because this is the only time I really talk about it. There's just not enough time, but I thought about maybe Mary and I could, maybe Nikki Ann and I have several different death care teams, but like the things we do and the activities we do and how do we get to know each other and what do we, like that's a whole conversation, and goes back to the, like, we are the pioneers, what else is possible? Like we're just winging it here, Babels. So yeah, I thought about a whole nother sort of an advanced class in a way, people who've already taken this class, or like an add-on or something where we could drop in and do some design around death care team. Thank you. Yeah. Do you have other thoughts you wanted to share?
No, it just makes so
Okay,
much, so
great.
excited
Yeah.
about the thought. Yeah.
Yeah, an emphatic yes. Yeah, so it sounds like, yeah, I got to get on that curriculum, and just like really looking at what has worked, what works, and how to keep the cohesion of the team going. What
And
are
how to
people's
recruit?
limitations?
How do you recruit people? Like, how do you get, that just seems.
Well, single women without spouses or children is a great place to start.
I'm one.
Yeah. I mean, you have children, but or you have a child, but yeah, I mean, for those of us who don't want to be partnered in a traditional way or aren't partnered, like there's a whole bunch of us. We're remaking the world. We're remaking culture, so that's a really great place to start. It doesn't have to be women. It can be women and men. It can be whatever, any gender. And I think it's a really opportunity for much more holistic approach to this stuff rather than, oh, it gets dumped on the kids or it gets dumped on the spouse. Other thoughts, other shares. Aline.
I found that as we've started to talk about this here at Dancing Rabbit, people are interested. Either they don't want to talk about it at all, and it's very clear, or they're kind of, oh, I never thought about that. And just having this list of traits that I'd like in someone, some of the people I'm closest to are also some of the busiest people and who have many siblings who are really needy. And so while I would selfishly like that person to be on my team, I don't think that would work for them. Yeah, so I'm contemplating like buying copies of this 5 Wishes thing and sending it out with our Christmas cards this year. I don't know if that would be too ghoulish for our friends. Hi, happy holidays, happy solstice. Are you dying? Let's talk about it. I don't know. But I want to be part of that change. I want people not to be scared about it and or to just start talking about it. And I don't know, I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah, we're going to touch on this with the deaf literate community, but this is a really great place to start touching on it, which is there are deaf cafes that some regions, cities, states hold where the only purpose is to come together and talk about death. You can host a death salon, where you tell people in advance, we're going to talk about death. My deaf care team and I are hosting a death and dessert party in November this year, right around the Day of the Dead, where we're like, you come, you eat dessert, you talk about death. We got the whole thing set up, just show up and be curious, So what do these conversations look like, right? Holidays will come around eventually. And it's like, hey, can we put aside a little time? I have this homework and I have this form and I did this thing, and like, it's better for you to know now than to be struggling in an unknown situation. So can we talk? Have a conversation with a family or friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Like, hey, this is what's up for me. Are you up for this conversation? How are those entry points feeling for folks? The conversation is so important. Anyone want to speak that hasn't spoken yet? Jeannie, we haven't heard from you. Carolyn, we haven't heard. Mel, not much from you. Anybody else?
Carolyn here, I will, because Aileen and I were talking. I have a death cafe here at my local library. And you don't have to be trained. I'm not running it, but if you do deathcafe.com, they have an entire, and they have Zoom things. So if there's not one locally, and I highly recommend it because it has been so interesting to find. It's not about grieving, it's not about caregiving, it's not hospice, it's about conversation. And it is amazing to be in a room of people who want to have these conversations. And there's 12 people, and in the season here, there's double that. And it's an interesting, it's not dark and morbid. And there's a lot of emotion sometimes, and there's great stories. But I would I've enjoyed it. I've been to 2 because now we're back face to face, and I wanted face to face. And it's been a delight and a surprising delight. And yes, highly recommend.
Excellent. Yeah. So deaf cafes, there could be one near you. Look online on Facebook. There could be online versions that you don't have to be near. And yeah, the breakout rooms or in-person small groups, and the conversation is deaf. Group can take it anywhere they want to take it. There's no instructions other than that. So it's really, really great. Because we really need to get out of this paralysis culturally that we're in about this topic. We really do, if we're going to have any literacy, any positivity, any consciousness. And when you do, it's lovely often, most of the time, it's quite lovely. Anybody else? Any last thoughts? Somebody who hasn't spoken? Ellie, yeah, go ahead. Elle, sorry.
I'm just curious if you have suggestions on how to help people open up to the discussion.
You mean people in your life that you want to have the conversation with?
It's not an issue for me. I actually already have that and I don't have a problem talking about it, but I'm just wondering to help the greater collective, if there was something besides, I can go to a deaf cafe, but how do I, even just with my regular friends, just bring it up? What would you suggest? Have you done much of that?
Yeah, I mean, I happen to be in sort of a groovy hippie world, and so I don't have a lot of resistance to that among my people. I think the 5 wishes is a really interesting potential doorway. Like, hey, do you know about this sort of like international movement and template for people to sort of like have a way to talk about what they want at the end of life? I'm going to introduce you to this Go Wish card game. Like, here's this little game, and have you thought about it? And hey, I'm, taking this class, like, I'm interested. Do you want to get together, go for a walk, have lunch, do whatever? And like, are you up for talking about death? I'm not sure, I don't know, Aline, maybe you had some resources about, Aline and I taught a class together that was like, there was these other entries. Anybody have ideas to offer, Elle and us? Oh, okay. So Aline, can you speak about that game?
Yeah, it's called Start with Hello, and it's a little booklet with questions. It's just this little booklet, and if you could control only one thing about the place where you spend your last hours of life, what would it be? It's just those kind of thoughtful questions. I mean, people would have to be willing to talk about it, but they're not all really serious. Who haven't you talked with in more than 6 months that you'd want to talk with before you die? I mean, some of them even just one of these questions would get people going, and maybe start with an easy one and then get more serious as they seem ready or interested.
Right. Those aren't the kind of questions you would text to someone, but you want to be like, hey, let's have a little conversation. Consent is definitely important for this conversation. Wait, it went away. Hold on. Mango, not everyone is ready. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Colleen.
There's also the book by Atul Gawande.
Being Mortal.
Thank you.
Yeah, book club is another interesting approach. Hey, I'm reading this book. You care to read it and we can talk about it?
Yeah, and I've given that to lots of people, and it's just kind of, it's thought-provoking.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That book really gives a big picture understanding of how the medical systems and people within those medical systems are trained in towards life and don't have any very, very, very little training in death literacy. So it's helpful. It's a helpful context.
That's a great book. I'm listening to it right now on Audible. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So I'd like to move. How's everybody doing? Okay with more? Any more on this topic? Elle, go ahead.
What was the name of that last book you were saying?
Being Mortal.
Being Mortal.
Mortal.
Okay. Thank you.
Gawande is his last name. Atul Gawande. Great, thank you. There it is. Thanks, Susan. Gawande. Yeah, great. Awesome. Any last thoughts? So, your homework for wish one, we're gonna get to the checklist later, but your homework for wish one is like, who do you want to start having conversations with? You can, if you've printed out the checklist, you can start to fill that out. Like, who am I having conversations with in my life? Do I want to think about a death care team? Do I want to talk to individuals? Like, you're gonna put it on your calendar, you're gonna reach out, you're gonna make those dates, right? This is a real external to do, a real external. Like, this is like people in your life. We are not isolated creatures, we are social animals. So who wants to be along for the ride with you and your death? Okay, make notes of that. What's your homework? Who are you talking to? How are you thinking about this? How are you going to continue to contemplate wish one, your healthcare agent? Okay, I'm going to start this next section by reading you this quote from Marcus Aurelius. Even if you're going to live 3,000 more years or 10 times that, remember, you cannot lose another life than the one you're living now, or live another one than the one you're losing. The longest amounts to the same as the shortest. The present is the same for everyone. Its loss is the same for everyone. And it should be clear that a brief instant is all that is lost, for you cannot lose either the past or the future. How could you lose what you don't have? Okay, I am on page 6. Mel, do you feel up for reading? You got to unmute, and if you could read the top section there, the headline, the italicized, and then what you should keep in mind as my caregiver.
I believe that my life is precious, and I deserve to be treated with dignity. When the time comes that I am very sick and I am not able to speak for myself, I want the following wishes and any other directions I have given to my healthcare agent to be respected and followed.
Keep going, yep.
Okay. What you should keep in mind as my caregiver: I do not want to be in pain. I want my doctor to give me enough medicine to relieve my pain, even if that means I will be drowsy or sleep more than I would otherwise. I do want anything done or omitted. I do not want anything done or omitted by any doctors or nurses with the intention of taking my life. I want to be offered food and fluids by mouth and kept clean and warm.
Thank you. Heather, would you read the next section?
Yeah, there we go. What life support treatment means to me. Life support treatment means any medical procedure, device, or medication to keep me alive. Life support treatment includes medical devices put in me to help me breathe, food and water supplied by medical device, tube feeding, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, major surgery, blood transfusions, dialysis, antibiotics, and anything else meant to keep me alive. If I wish to limit the meaning of life support treatment because of my religious or personal beliefs, I write this limitation in the space below. I do this to make very clear what I want and under what conditions.
Great, thank you. I'm going to skip this little box at the bottom, which says in case of emergency, because we're going to talk about the do not resuscitate form at length next time on the 17th. So I'm just going to skip that for now, because you'll want to have a separate one. So let's see, page 7. Carolyn, would you read the top italicized part and then the close to death section?
Sure. Are we going to have questions after?
Yes.
Okay, because that bullet point, one of these bullet points, I don't understand. Okay. Here is the kind of medical treatment that I want or don't want in the 4 situations listed below. I want my healthcare agent, my family, my doctors and other healthcare providers, my friends and all others to know these directions. Close to death. If my doctor and another healthcare professional both decide that I am likely to die within a short period of time, and life support treatment would only delay the moment of my death, choose one of the following. I want to have life support treatment. I do not want life support treatment. If it has been started, I want it stopped. Or I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help. But I want my doctor to stop giving me life support treatment if it is not helping my health condition or symptoms.
Thank you so much. Susan Berwin, I think you have someone else there with you too. Hi. Could you all read in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover,
Yes,
one of you,
sure.
and then the other one of you to read the second, permanent and severe brain damage?
Okay, the person who's with me is my husband, David.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Hi, okay. In a coma and not expected to wake up or recover. If my doctor and another healthcare professional both decide that I am in a coma from which I am not expected to wake up or recover, and I have brain damage and life support treatment would only delay the moment of my death, choose one of the following. I want to have life support treatment. I do not want life support treatment. If it has been started, I want it to stop. I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help, but I want my doctor to stop giving me life support treatment if it is not helping my health conditions or symptoms. Do you want to do the next one?
Yeah. So the next one, permanent and severe brain damage and not expected to recover. Excuse me a second. If my doctor and another healthcare professional both decide that I have permanent and severe brain damage, for example, I can open my eyes, but I cannot speak or understand, and I am not expected to get better, and life support treatment would only delay the moment of my death, parentheses, choose one of the following. And here they are. I want to have life support treatment. I do not want life support treatment if it has been started. I want it stopped. I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help, but I want my doctor to stop giving me life support treatment if it is not helping my health conditions or symptoms. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and read that last one. You're doing
Okay.
great.
In another condition under which I do not wish to be kept alive. If there is another condition under which I do not wish to have life support treatment, I describe it below. In this condition, I believe the costs and burdens of life support treatment are too much and not worth the benefits to me. Therefore, in this condition, I do not want life support treatment, parentheses. For example, you may write end stage condition. That means that your health has gotten worse. You are not able to take care of yourself in any way, mentally or physically. Life support treatment will not help you recover. Please leave the space blank if you have no other condition to describe, end of parentheses.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a lot. And I know there's questions. Just give me a couple minutes to just say the possible variables are endless, right? They have these 4 categories here again, because they're doing their best to have a bit of a template and to have these sort of buckets to catch, some large, patterns that might emerge, but there may be in between all of this, right? So, we really don't know what we're facing, and we're going to do the best we can. And this helps people in our lives understand where the flavor, where we're going with how we're thinking about this. what are the questions that come up for you all? I'm going to take this off, and then I have a life prolonging measures slide I want to show you as well. Carolyn, go ahead.
It's like coming in like with two, like two negatives make a positive thing. So that in my mind is my caregiver, that first paragraph in that bullet point that says, I do not want anything done or admitted by my doctors or nurses with the intention of taking my life. Can you flesh that out a little? I know we can cross them off or keep them, but somehow I'm getting turned around. Is this assisted or not assisted, or I'm missing something in that line?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm not entirely sure what they had in mind when they wrote this, but I think it could be, there are some states that allow a euthanasia thing that some people actually want. We're going to talk about that a little more. And this is just saying, that's not the track I'm on, right? I'm not on that track. There's also, there's also the thing that happens oftentimes when people are in hospice, that generally speaking, they can be dying of morphine as much as they can be dying of the illness. And so, this is apparently a thing for people. So, I think that's the best I can do with trying to translate. Anybody else want to try to translate?
It wasn't about life support. It's its own. It's not this, because the rest was about life support. This is that own thread. Yeah, because I understand.
Where in the document is this? I'm not finding it.
It's on page 6. It's under the heading, what you should keep in mind as my caregiver. And it's the second bullet point under that.
Oh.
Let's talk a little bit about life prolonging measures before. I'm going to share this slide real quick, and then we'll come back to questions. So let's talk about life prolonging measures. Pain management actually falls under life prolonging measures in some contexts, right? Like, this could be feeding tubes and fecal tubes and breathing tubes, also known as a ventilator. It could be catheters. Some people consider tests life prolonging, radiation and chemo, pain medication, renal dialysis, hydration, antibiotics, surgery, CPR, defibrillation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, some people feel that some of these things are perfectly acceptable, and others of these things are absolutely not to be done no matter what, right? It's up to the individual. But if one were at home with no intervention, in a lot of pain, death might come sooner. It's hard to know. And so theoretically, conceivably, that all of these things are life prolonging measures. And so wish 2 is really dealing with, what do you want and what do you not want? Is this helpful? You can take a screenshot of this or take a photo of this. There's probably even more of these.
Raise your hand. I am raising my hand.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I think I think that what you put up doesn't pertain to this particular paragraph. And let me tell you why I believe that.
Okay.
It says, I do not want anything done. I'm going to take out all the omitted in this case. I don't want anything done by my doctors or nurses with the intention of taking my life. I think that's different than prolonging my life. So I think what this is that I don't want anything done that that basically is sort of euthanasia, is what I'm getting from this paragraph.
That's sort of what I had gotten to, but things are multiply interpretable. Thank you.
Right.
What I saw it as was an either or, like you put out, either you circle omitted or you circle, or, cross out done or cross out omitted. Because it may be you want your life, it's like, it might be that at a certain point, you just want to be taken. You want your life to be taken. You don't want to continue.
Yeah, well, that would not be a thing that could be done in most states. So I appreciate that, and I'd be curious if it was, but I doubt that's true. There are 5 states that allow pretty sure this is true. Montana, Colorado, California, Washington, and Oregon, who allow medical assisted death. They call it compassionate euthanasia. I have a whole section of my links page, resources page on my website that you can go to if you're interested in that. A lot of people are advocates and activists for this, right? Like that feels strongly about having more access to this. It seems to me if we had a death literate culture, there'd be more options. That's just my personal opinion. But however you feel about it, but let's not get too lost in the trees here and look at the forest of wish too, which is what do you want and what do you not want? Cross that sentence out if it doesn't make any sense to you. That's what a template is for. But what do you want and what do you not want when the end of life issues are upon you, right? And these 4 categories: close to death, in a coma, not expected to wake up, permanent or severe brain damage, or any other condition, right? This is a bridge you may never cross. You may never cross this bridge. May not look like this at all, but this is part of what it looks like to think about end of life. Like if you are in this situation, it's very helpful for people who love you to know what it is you want. Other questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions? Linda, please.
So for each one of these on page 7, they give the third option. I want to have my life support. I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help. So what is that? Is that, I mean, it's already saying above that, you know, it's permanent, you're going to die. So I don't understand life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help. Help what? Like,
great.
Like
question.
help what? Like keep me alive longer? Help my situation reverse? Like that's just a really, I mean, yeah, if it could help, I'd say yes, but like it seems like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah, define help. Yeah, define help. Really good. Yeah, I mean,
And
you know,
yeah, and it's also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, it also looks like it's taking the decision and putting it back in the healthcare provider. So maybe that's what it's about. So you're not deciding anymore. You're saying, okay, healthcare provider, you decide for me. I'm just wondering your interpretation.
Sometimes these situations are just super tender, really. And can we just, you know, imagine for a moment how tender they can be for loved ones when their beloved is in a situation where they're not sure, you know, would it help, would it not help? And this is where, you know, the hospital is going to potentially have a perspective, or different doctors or nurses or caregivers in the hospital might have, each of them have different perspectives. If you have a patient advocate, they might have a different perspective. So these come up all the time. And I think this is where we really can sit in the mystery of not knowing. Again, I think the template's trying their best to say, wow, there's sometimes an in-between space where you don't want it, you know you don't want it, or you do want it, but there's this gray area. And this is where the addendum is going to come in handy. And I'm going to share the addendum with you in the second half about, like, you can spell out that more specifically. If Karen Sanders is going to come today, she's a patient advocate, and you can tell her your wishes. Listen, I want to be kept alive in these instances, not kept alive in these instances. And if it's a gray area, I want you to, you know, give my healthcare agent best instruction you possibly can, and they're going to make their best decision. So that's what that choice means. It means the whole big wide world of gray area, which is a lot. Because one thing is certain in life, there is no certainty. What else? What else is there for folks? Heather, please.
Just quickly, I wanted to reemphasize what you said about the gray areas. Like, as I said, our family had all these paperworks in mind, and we know we have a plan. And then I went to nursing school, and I realized that we have we have so many ways to keep people alive that I hadn't thought about, and that I needed to think about. and so many instances of like possible exit events. And, you know, as my mom had Alzheimer's and we cared for her and we got to consider exit events in service of her wishes. And that brings me to the second point, which was in being mortal, which really stuck in my brain. And it was a way that we checked in with my mom as her Alzheimer's progressed, which is, what are the elements of your life that are a life worth living? And just like in layman's terms. And so my mom said, I want to be able to walk around and I want to be able to make people laugh. Like, she didn't have to know what was going on, but she had to be able to kind of have some sort of engagement that was meaningful. And so that really guided us, those kind of just like that, the spirit of her, what quality of life meant to her. And that worked for our family. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That I love that. And it would be lovely to sort of add that, which, you know, I think it's in the Being Mortal book where he talks about what is your definition of quality of life. I really love that. I want to add a slide for that. Like, instead of looking at sort of what I don't want, what is my definition of quality of life? I really taken away something from that. What is my definition of quality of life? And where am I, like, what's the least invasive way for me to maintain that quality of life without invasion, without too much invasiveness, right? Like that's a really awesome way to frame that, Heather. Thank you. What is my definition of quality of life, and how do I maintain that without too much intrusion and invasion? Really good. Without too much, I would even add for myself, without too much expense, with invasion or stress, right? Like, that is a very interesting question. I just typed it down and put it in the chat if y'all wanna. That's really helpful for me.
And if I may add, the other part of it was, I think in Atul Gawande's book, he had that conversation with his dad before this really invasive spinal surgery. And I think his dad wanted to be able to eat ice cream and like one other thing. And maybe I'm just remembering it wrong because ice cream is yummy, but I don't know.
It was sit on the couch and watch football.
Yeah, I thought there was TV involved. Yes, thank you. And the other part is, if I don't have that, then let me go. Like, if there's an opportunity, then don't plan to save me if something were to happen.
Yeah, thank you. There's this great old Radio Lab episode. Radio Lab is a podcast, and there's a link on my resource page it's something like 9 out of 10 doctors, and 9 out of 10 doctors were interviewed about like what kind of end of life measures that they wanted and that they had in their own paperwork. And 9 out of 10 of them were like, don't do anything to me except for pain medication. Nothing. None of this. Which is fascinating, right? For people who are in that system to say that. So, you know, this is an opportunity for some research and contemplation, because there's no wrong answers here. There's no right answers here. The answers are unique to you. We're going to talk a little bit more about the addendum, where you can get specific. You can get as specific as you want. So going back to your questions, Linda, it's like, well, if this happens, I can da, 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 da. If this happens, da, 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 da. You can get that specific if you want to. You know, one of the pieces of the addendum that I have is like, I want my healthcare agents to do the best they can. And if I die sooner than later because of that, just go easy on yourselves. It's fine. Like, it's fine. Just, you know, can we not stress about this? Can we bring as little stress into the situation as possible? And I can't control that. Maybe it's going to be filled with stress. Who knows? Susan.
So one of the things that was very, very helpful when David's father was dying of cancer and there were decisions to be made was, we had a very wise oncologist, and he said, whatever decision you make is the right decision. And that was extremely comforting.
I love that. Whatever decision you make is the right decision. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, with that brings me back to my little, my beloved dad that I brought here today, my friend Chuck. And unfortunately, the oncologist on his situation, he came in with a stage 4 pancreatic cancer that he didn't even know he had. So he didn't even know he was sick. He came into the hospital and the surgeon or the oncologist said, you could live up to 2 years if you get proper treatment. And Chuck was dead in 30 days. From my perspective, that oncologist was not being honest with him. I'm not a medical professional, and I could have probably told him, wow, that doesn't sound right to me. I think it could be soon, right? And so he delayed a whole bunch of stuff that he wouldn't have delayed if the oncologist had been honest with him. And this is what I see as the, cowardice of some of these systems. And I sort of looked that oncologist in the eye and can tell it was uncomfortable for him, right? I was there, and there's a lot to say. There's a lot of story about that. But what happened after his death was pretty painful for a lot of people. There was a lawsuit. There was a whole bunch of stuff. But that is, a heartbreak for me that our systems and our institutions are so disassociated from that they can't be honest with us. So I love, Susan, I love that this oncologist said whatever decision you make is the right decision. And if we don't have all the information, we can't be making good decisions, right?
Right. I was going to say, just a different oncologist in the same situation didn't even understand quality of life. I mean, his whole narrow focus was, I'm here to keep this person alive at all costs.
Yes, that's often the attitude.
Horrible.
So when we start getting death literate, it's like anything. When we start eating healthier, then we're like, oh my gosh, eating this junk food makes me feel bad. It never made me feel bad before. How is it making me feel bad now, right? It's similar. We start getting death literate, we start getting conscious, we start getting death positive, and then we run into these systems and situations and we're like, oh my God, I'm up against denial. I'm up against downright unconsciousness. I'm up against negativity. So as you go into these contemplations and inquiries and conversations, just know that you're going to be facing a lot of awareness about how much in denial much of the world is about these topics that you're now opening up to and wanting to have a different attitude with. So it's a real thing.
It's interesting that you said that about that this person was saying they would have 2 more years to live, because it seems like there's also, I keep hearing about the opposite. Well, they'll say like you've got a month left to live, and then the person will live 2 or 3 more years. Where there's this, I feel like there's a way in which almost any expectation that's set up around how much longer you're going to live is a booby trap.
Booby trap, I love it. Yeah, I appreciate that as well. But that's less of a problematic, well, it's a differently problematic situation. It's a differently problematic situation. Yes, I got it. Yes, Mariah, we're going to take a break here shortly, but let's get everybody's thoughts out.
I was just going to recommend a book that really is about the medicalization of the dying process that everyone probably knows, called The Midwife. Jennifer Worth wrote a wonderful book called In the Midst of Life. And it's basically a understanding of how the dying process got taken over by the medical profession. And I found it truly very level in its present. She's a wonderful writer. And if people are interested in reading about that to help them in decisions about what they want and stuff, I thought that book would be very helpful.
Yeah, great. All right, so we're going to take a break here. I'm going to put this, oops. I was going to put the link to the Go Wish game. Let me find it. If you want to do this on the break, you are welcome to. No requirement. It's a super fun game, and you can buy a deck of cards that you can play it in the physical, or you can experiment with it online, and you can do it in the next 2 weeks also, no requirement to do it now. But it starts to get at some of these things that Heather brought up, that Mariah brought up, that we're all bringing up, which is like, what's important to me? What is important to me in these times? And you might surprise yourself, actually. I surprise myself every time I play this Go Wish game. And when I had my mom play it, her answers really surprised me too. So let me just share the screen briefly. Here it is. Just to tell you how to play it. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the Go Wish deck is here. And if I click on it,
not being connected to machines.
It has a verbal component, an audio component. So not being connected to machines. How important is that to me? Now I have 3 categories here. I have a very important category, which has limited spots. You will notice, because they're trying to make you sacred sort down to the most important, a somewhat important, and a not important. And so if I want this to be in the somewhat important, I would click on this box and it goes down there immediately. Then I go back to the card deck.
To prevent arguments by making sure my family knows what I want.
So I would go down for me and say, oh, that's not that important. They can argue if they want to. And
to
then
remember personal accomplishments.
To remember my personal accomplishments, somewhat important. So, and then you keep clicking on that until the whole deck is done. I think there's like 36 cards, something like that. So again, don't feel pressured to do it during the break. You can if you want to. And it's really helpful at this stage when we start to think about wish 2 and like, and this question of like, what is really important to me? So why don't we come back at 4:30? You can keep your screen on, you can stay connected or not, it's up to you. I would just say mute and change your video, and then I'll see you in 20-ish minutes. And I'll come back a little early if folks wanna, if folks wanna chat. Yeah, I loved what you said, Jeannie, about, you know, are there these portals, right? Is there a portal for us, like, you know, our soul or our essence or our guidance or our divinity is like, would you like to take this door now? And, you know, what is the like, no, I'm never going to take the door. I'm going to avoid the door as much as possible. That door isn't for me. Like, how does that serve us?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly we culturally got here, you know, versus like, do we have an end date? Do we have a time? Do we take the first door that's offered? I mean, these are beautiful questions. Just, you know, the metaphoric, mystical, mysterious questions that these are, that you are, you know, I love that you have more questions than you're overwhelmed by your own questions. Like, that's a very alive place to be from my perspective. Okay, we have 30 minutes until Karen comes, and there's so much I want to do. Where do I want to start? Anybody do the Go Wish game and want to check in about it? Aline, will you tell us how it was for you?
I really liked it. I didn't get very far because I ran and got lunch, but I was surprised to find that I ran out of most important. Everything didn't get to be, so then I had to start reevaluating, and then it was time to come back. So that's going to be interesting to think about. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so I have the actual cards. You can order them online. There's also a link on my website for these actual cards. So, you know, you're in community, so you could get, they have different colors because there's different questions, and you can play the game in a number of ways. Like you can make teams and then be like, okay, your team, you're all dying young. Your team, you're all dying of dementia at 99. Your team, you're in a car accident with your healthcare agent. Like, play it out, work it, you know, like what's important to you. And then you have to like reduce the number of most important things. So in some of the games, you're like, pick one thing out of this whole deck that is the most important thing to you, right? So it's a great practice. It really, you're not the only one who says that. Why didn't they make the most important line bigger? Because they did that intentionally. Because we don't always get what we want in life or in death. So yeah, it's a good game. Anybody else play the Go Wish game? All right, so put that down on your checklist or your homework list or your notes or whatever. Play the Go Wish game these next 2 weeks, or get the Go Wish cards. Really fun, really good, really insightful. My mom played the game and I took a picture of her top 4. I think I gave her 4. Pick top 4 is what I said. And they were so foreign to me. They would totally not have been the ones I would have chosen, that I took a picture of it and I keep it in my big fatty end of life file, because I was like, I am never gonna remember this. If she's on, I'll see if I can find a picture of it. If she's on her deathbed or if she's in a decline and she wants me to be supporting her, like, you know, I don't know where it is. You know, I was sort of like not trusting myself to remember, because I would have just projected onto her what was important to me, right? So that's a really important thing to realize. It's like when we realize, like, oh, I might be projecting onto someone what I want, and that's not actually what they want. So take a picture. You know, you can, I don't know if you saw this, but in the game itself, you can save the session, print the session, restart the session. So if you want to do it online, there's lots of ways to do that. You can sort of like, I think it downloads as something, I don't fully remember, but it maybe downloads as a PDF or something. Okay, I think I want to send you all to talk a little bit more about Wish 2. Wish 2 is really important. It's going to really guide, yeah, these life prolonging measures are really a big deal. I want to say a little bit about pain. There is a broad spectrum of beliefs about the role of pain in end of life. Hospice has probably a pretty familiar belief about pain, which is no breakthrough pain. That's their motto, that's their framework, that's their structure. So they give enough pain medication so that it's better in their minds. It's better if the person is kind of zonked than if they have to just try to catch up on some, you know, like big spike or peak of pain. They'd rather like keep you much more medicated. And, you know, then there's these morphine drips that people can do themselves if they're conscious enough. There's a whole bunch of things. But, you know, then you should know that there's other perspectives. Stephen Jenkinson, anybody familiar with Stephen Jenkinson? He wrote a book called Die Wise. And there's a film called Grief Walker. He's a pretty big advocate of minimizing pain meds. It's pretty radical. It's pretty radical perspective. And his perspective is pain is part of what ushers us out, what supports our process. Pain is an important part of the dying process. I'm not suggesting anybody has a right or wrong perspective. There's a spectrum. And so if you want to investigate that more, and of course, as we start to legalize things like cannabis and even psilocybin, you know, even some of these things that have been inaccessible to us, right? And there's Matthew Wood is a herbalist, and somebody was telling me they did a palliative or end of life herbal training with him, and he has these like very specific protocols for supporting pain in the end of life, right? So if we had a death literate culture, we would have, yeah, Mariah, thanks, Die Wise. Yeah, that's his book. If we had a death literate culture, we'd have thousands of opinions on this topic. And we'd, just like we have thousands of opinions on diets and thousands of opinions about how to love and who to love and all of the things, right? We can choose from this vast array of perspectives in our culture. But since we have a death illiterate culture, a lot of this stuff is underground and hidden away, and we can't really find it. And there's only one or two voices on the topic. There's hospice and there's Stephen Jenkinson, like where's all the other voices about, compassionate euthanasia also, right? So I want to suggest, if you feel a tingle about like, oh, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about how I want to approach pain meds. That's a research project for you to take on, right? Listen to some different voices. There's probably some podcasts out there, YouTube videos, whatever. People have, people have opinions in this world. Maybe you've noticed, but people's opinions might inform where you want to be. So I will just say that there's no right or wrong answers for wish 2. So why don't you spend a little time and we'll redo the breakout rooms, and it's gonna be quick because I got other stuff to share with you. But if you could be sharing, let me recreate this. If you could be sharing with each other, what are you thinking? What are you thinking you want and you don't want? Any questions before we go? Anything? Did I see anybody? Okay, so 5 minutes. Sorry it's so short. 5 minutes with a 1-minute callback, and then we'll get to some other stuff before Karen shows up. We need so much. We need more time for every topic, but this is what we got. So here we go. Any thoughts folks want to share, Jeannie?
Well, we were having a conversation about pain, and I feel like when I gave birth to my daughter, the pain, I did it without any pain meds. And I feel like there was something that was so transformative in the pain of that experience of giving birth. And I wonder, it makes me really curious about Stephen Jenkins' idea, or was that minimize pain meds? Yeah, about that idea that pain serves a role, that there's a way that it transforms our capacity in whatever way it is. So
I think that's exactly what he's pointing to. I think it's exactly, you tapped into exactly what he's saying.
Mhm. Yeah. And when I sat Vipassana, I also remember this, like sitting for, you sit for 12 days for 12 hours a day for 10 days or whatever. And that there were times when I would be in so much pain. And it was in those moments when there was so much pain that things would start to transform in me. So I feel like that thing about the idea that this is that pain is actually a transformational portal.
Yeah.
And
we need pain literacy, right? Because right now on our, in our society, or the ways we have access to, it's either this or it's that. You either have pain or you don't, right? And so this is part of what I think needs to come out of this, death literate culture, is what are the options? What is the bouquet of options open to us? And I think that's starting to emerge. Linda.
Yeah, and I'm just I had just a slightly different take on that. It's like I want to be in that sweet spot where I'm present and as aware as possible for the transition. So I don't want to be numbed out, but I don't want to be in so much pain that it takes over. And I know the sitting it through pain piece really well, Jeannie. I've done the Vipassana, and in my own life, even right now, just sitting with the portal. And Eileen, if you have a moment to share what you were bringing forth, because I thought it was really important in our group.
Yeah, pain doesn't, I just had both knees redone last year, and I learned about how to deal with pain. The first one was really hard because I didn't understand being over-medicated and under-medicated, blah, blah, blah. But I was recently diagnosed with a respiratory condition, which will eventually make it really, really hard for me to breathe. And that's what I find scary. because I don't want to be intubated and I want to be able to choose my time. And I've only had about 3 weeks to think about this. I mean, I don't have a final diagnosis yet. We're still doing tests, but just contemplating it, it's not just about pain because morphine is a respiratory depressant. So, there's just a lot of nuances and I don't know. It isn't just, I mean, for me, it's not just about pain. It's like, what is it all going to be like? And
Right.
can I breathe or not? So.
Yeah, I love where y'all are taking this conversation and the things that are scary to us, the things that we are willing to put down, the things that are, where we really want. You talked about being present, Linda, and I love that. But, and I think where we're going to need to be present is internally, right? And so how do we build the muscle to be present internally? And in some ways, pain brings us internal, right? I was just thinking about that. Like pain is like, whoa, I got to be right here, right now. And again, I'm not advocating or suggesting that anybody do anything, but I'm just noticing that. And then, yes, how do we ride the wave of pain? Is there contraction, expansion? Is there relief? Is there, with childbirth, you're getting somewhere, right? And the same is true with death. Like how could we see that differently? I'm very curious about this conversation. I don't have any answers for y'all, but we are the pioneers again and again. So other thoughts?
I'm really curious about it as well. And I think that the notion that death could be ecstatic like birth can be, that's a potential.
Yes, my co-teacher Mary Lane, she's an elder and a mentor of mine, and we teach this class, Walking Towards a Good Death, and I call her the walking transmission. She has some spiritual transmission every time she opens her mouth for me. And one of the pieces that she says is, how can I drop so much of my baggage that at the moment, the moments leading up to and the moment of my death, I'm just a yes. I'm just as big of a yes as I could possibly be, stepping into the arms of the beloved, or whatever metaphor works for people, coming home, being with the divine. And I love that contemplation. I love it, really. It really has changed my life in a way. Yeah. Well, I want to get to the addendum before Karen comes. So I'm going to just show you this. Okay. So this is the addendum. And did I put this link in the chat? Okay. Okay. I got a template for an addendum from my teachers, from Caroline and Ruth, when they taught us, and I am offering my addendum to you to steal and take and borrow and change as much as you want of it. This is what I think of as an open source document, at least from my perspective. And this is where I typed up each of the 5 wishes and what I wanted to say in more detail. So for wish 1, for the healthcare agent, I said, as much as possible, I would love group think, collaborative support, collective wisdom, and then I named my people. And then in addition, whatever decisions you make, please consider alternative care. I have been procrastinating updating my documents too. So if you procrastinate, just know you're not alone. We're all doing it. Which, part of the point of this course is to get us out of that rut. But if I were to update my wish 1 some more, I would say things like what that oncologist said to Susan: no, all decisions are good decisions. Please support each other to savor and celebrate this role that you're carrying and this function, and just really trust. Wish 2, I say things like, please put me in hospice care if that's appropriate. Let's check out non-pharmacological attempts at pain control. I say something about hallucinations here, the idea that, hallucinations are part of the death process. Just adding some things in that are really important to me about my wish 1 and my wish 2. And so this might stimulate some thoughts for you all that you might have similar things, or it might spin off into something else that you care about. So feel free to look at this addendum and beg, borrow, and steal. Take whatever you want from it and make it your own. Obviously, you're going to have to put it, I shared a Word document and a Google document, so you can copy and paste into your own document, and you can use whatever's here, and then just add to it. If you decide you're not going to use the 5 wishes, that's fine. And we're going to talk again, there's some pros and cons with institutions with this document, but it's a springboard for you. And I appreciate it, because at the very least, it's going to guide my loved ones, right? It's going to guide the people in my circles, and it's more relational and heartful than some of these other more legal documents, which I'm advocating you do as well. We're going to get there. But so this addendum is a place for you to put all of your thoughts, your hopes, your musings. I mean, even as you were saying, Aline, earlier, which is wow, I'm really contemplating this blend between pain and breathing, and wow, breathing seems really important to me. Wherever you are on that journey with that, I'd say put that down. That's vulnerable, that's tender, that could go in some kind of an addendum like this, I'm looking for this sweet spot or this balance. The other thing I wanted to bring up that is on my website, and also I think I sent you this list, is you really use this checklist. This is one you can use, or you can make your own. And I would add to it the things I left a lot of blank spaces. I didn't fill out everything. I just sort of put in there the things you might want to think about. But if you wanted to get back to that Go Wish card game, put that in there, and then give yourself a date. We're going to do a buddy system here towards the end of our time together, where we sort of get a partner that can help us stay accountable and supported in this process. So these are 2 really good tools. And, if possible, I really would love for you to play with this addendum, with this wish 1 and wish 2, and with this addendum during the 2 weeks that we're not going to be together. And this is just the structure of this checklist is a way for you to really stay on point with what you want to accomplish. So any questions about those things? Any thoughts about the addendum? I see the addendum as a guide for your healthcare agents. And a place for you, and potentially for yourself. If you're in a deep space where you're really contemplating this stuff, and it could be a guiding light for you in the future, then that's awesome, where things might get emotional at time, and you can read back and say, oh, right, yeah, this was really important to me. Any other thoughts about the checklist, or how to use it, or the addendum?
Well, I appreciate that you're offering the addendum, because it looks like there's some things that are more in alignment with what I'm thinking than what maybe is presented. And so it's nice to have something that's a little closer, just like another possible template. So
yeah,
I say thank you for that.
I mean, I will say, when you go to a lawyer and you want to get your end of life paperwork done, they also have a template. It's a very legal template, but it's, they have a living will, and they also, they have remember the three categories of paperwork, right? The living will stuff, the after death care, and the financial stuff. They also have, lawyers have these templates. They're more legal, so there's less. My experience is people have less relationship to what they actually want, right? Because it's just this like fill in the blank kind of thing. But that's fine. That's a fine way to go. I think my invitation is to just have a good sense of it. And then the 5 wishes or the addendum, if you want to do a legal thing and then do the addendum is really a good roadmap. It's a really helpful roadmap that can weave in so much of our value systems and our belief systems.
So I think what I'm hearing you say, like, I already have a healthcare directive, which is going to get a redo. So I could use the 5 wishes to inform the healthcare directive and then add an addendum.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'll just say this one last thing, and this is probably a good transition to Karen, but medical institutions don't love the 5 wishes because it's a whole bunch of booklet pages to sort through, and they don't want all that touchy-feely stuff. They want a 1-page who's your person. So we're going to talk about that next time. The healthcare power of attorney, 1-page sheet. This is where redundancy comes in. They don't want to mess with all of this business, but it might be helpful to have both. So we'll talk about that. And I'm so happy to have you, Karen. Karen is a delightful friend, and she's going to do a patient advocacy 101. And just to tell you the context of this, for those of us who don't have an easy access to a healthcare team or a healthcare agent or someone or ones in our lives who are willing to be with us through a potential decline process, patient advocacy is a sort of emergent field where we could have some more options. So Karen does this in this work. This is her line of work, and she does it so well. And she's so generous to come and talk to us. So, hi, Karen.
Hi, Lee. I was muted. Sorry. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. All right. I'm going to talk to you for about 25 minutes. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to talk to you about the whole thing about patient advocacy. I'm an RN patient advocate. Actually, I'm a holistic RN patient advocate, and I've been in private practice for 7 years. So I'll just start with that.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to. There you go. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this is going to be introduction to patient advocacy and dying advocacy issues. And this is a nasty little flower that's on Chincoteague Island that is very metaphorical about our prickly healthcare system. So I have greater than 40 years experience in nursing and education and management positions, 7 years in private practice. I'm a board certified health and wellness nurse coach and board certified advanced holistic nurse. And I grew up in a catastrophic family system with my mother diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and saw my sister. And I stepped on the shoulders of many angels and people along my path, and I wanted to give back. So our quick objectives are just to talk about key aspects of our U.S. healthcare system, medical errors. There is a very excellent healthcare facility. There are more in the United States. We're going to talk about the role of the advocate, why you need to become an expert on yourself, and helpful attributes of a healthcare advocate, and advocacy issues regarding dying patients, and never give up on your healthcare. This was actually this slide. Oops, I'm going to turn on my slideshow from the current slide. So this is actually a set of doors from a airport in Edinburgh, Scotland. And it was pretty hilarious because they had something up here called a disruption desk and gate close and all these red things. And I thought, well, this is the door to healthcare. So becoming an informed consumer advocate. For those of you who haven't watched Ken Burns' The Mayo Clinic on Faith, Hope, and Science, I strongly recommend this video because you get a lot of hope about the absolute fabulous way healthcare can work. It was, for those of you who don't know, it started in a cornfield out in Rochester, Minnesota. Now there are 3 of them, and they've come together to create a fabulous world-class on the top 10 list of every list there is to known, started by William Worrell Mayo and his 2 sons. They had a bad tornado come through in '83, and then they hooked up with Mother Alfred Mose, who was a leader of a convent there. And she said, this place is going to be known for its medical arts. So transitioning to some facts about what is an advocate. It's a person who stands up and speaks out on behalf of a person, a cause, or an idea to make the listener make choose a course of action. So the outcome of advocacy is not always certain, but if you don't speak up, somebody is going to speak up for you. And that's especially true in healthcare. And we know that the advocate is going to have support before, during, and after, but our biggest tools are the words that we use. And some of the traits of an advocate are they have a public face, they communicate well with patients, they have really great people skills, they're respectful, they listen, they're cool under pressure, they're organized, and they are able to talk to healthcare professionals. A patient care advocate then is someone who stands up and speaks for a person who is a patient anywhere along the healthcare continuum. So a healthcare or an RN patient advocate can work anywhere along the healthcare continuum, from hospitals to hospice. And Winston Churchill's quote that resonates with me all the time is, never, never, never give in on your health care. Why should you care about becoming an informed consumer advocate? This is a tremendous book called Undoctored by Dr. William Davis, who is a cardiologist, and he wrote this book about why healthcare has failed you and how you can become smarter than your doctor. And then there's also a book named The American Sickness, which was also written by a physician, about how healthcare became big business and how you can take it back. So a few excerpts about their healthcare myths. These are myths about healthcare. Healthcare is about healing. Doctors are all knowing. Healthcare costs are high because quality is very expensive. That's not true. And hospitals are havens of caring, and we know that's not true. And our healthcare system does address illness, but it's not really good in providing health. And nowhere in this world would we buy a car from someone who used intimidation, refused to answer our questions, brushed us off, and didn't listen to us, where there was total disregard for customer satisfaction. If I had a car salesman like that, I'd run. But this is what is going on in healthcare. So again, healthcare is not much to do with doctors or the healthcare system. And these are just a couple of excerpts, but the one I want to focus in on another attribute of healthcare is that there are approximately 6,000 healthcare articles published every day. So it's impossible for any one person to keep up with all that. And in our state, in Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, they bought an artificial intelligence computer in 2017 that's called Watson, and it reads 25 million published medical papers for their cancer center. So there's some wonderful technology coming about to help us stay in touch with all of these articles. And then healthcare success is measured by how many medications are ordered. And in fact, when you go to a big box pharmacy like CVS and Walgreens, they are a production system, and the people who work there have huge quotas to manage. So that's one of the reasons why they don't have a lot of time to do a lot of education with drugs. So we have learned that we as humans can manage our own health care. And we know that cholesterol can be reduced and blood sugars can be decreased if we pay attention. This is a great book by Dr. Esselton about preventing and reversing heart disease. So now this is a book that's recommended by almost every cardiologist who knows that lifestyle like diet and exercise can really make a difference in your health. And we also know that in healthcare, and we usually have about 30 minutes to spend with our physician to talk about our bone health, our psychological issues, our blood pressure, our heart rates, and the medications, which is not very much. And the very sad thing about medications is that drug companies can charge anything they wish. So just another factor about healthcare is health literacy. And for a lot of people, patients are not literate with their health. And so health literacy is the ability to have the capacity to process and understand basic healthcare information. And it's dependent not only on the person who's giving you the information, it's depending on our ability to receive it. So a lot of lay people just don't have health literacy in terms of understanding all of the jargon we use in healthcare. And so it's not only our ability to process it, but it has to do with mathematics. So we get we get prescriptions that have, you take one pill at 50 milligrams, so you need to take two to add up to 100 milligrams. We know that there are a lot of people who don't understand math, and that's called numeracy skills and being able to calculate your meds, and also understanding your cholesterol and your blood sugars. So there's so many factors that affect us. Another big thing that's going on in healthcare is we are having the worst nursing shortage in our lifetimes as nurses. I've been a nurse for more than 40 years. This is the worst, longest sustained nursing shortage we've ever had in this country, with staggering numbers of nurses leaving, a lot due to what's happened with COVID and the workloads and the short staffing. And most healthcare is delivered in hospitals. So that's the places where it's really significant, also in skilled and independent and assisted living. And the other factor is that we're having huge certified nursing assistant vacancies. We know the average wage is $10 to $15 an hour, but you can go down the street and look at Wendy's is offering $18 an hour, and so might another restaurant. Medical errors are one of the leading causes of death in our country, and they happen a lot at handoffs. What do I mean by handoffs? So there is a shift report after a nurse works 12 hours, giving report to another nurse. That's called a handoff. It's also happening with physicians and respiratory therapists. It's a very dangerous time to have information transition from one caregiver to another. And we know that it's very stressful on anyone working in healthcare because you're taking care of a large cohort of patients. And if you have short staffing, the working conditions can be more severe. And this is just a brief story about a nurse who lost her license and had to go to court, and she was convicted for a mistake. She was really busy and took she was supposed to get Versed out of this machine, but instead she got becuronium, which is a powerful paralyzer. It stopped the patient's breathing and left them brain dead. So she was tired and she was distracted, and she said, I was complacent. I'm not going to go through the 5 types of errors in hospitals, but we need more patient involvement. And so the way that you can become your patient advocate, your advocate for yourself, your advocate for loved ones, is to ask questions. And there are 9 major causes of medical errors in the United States. One is falls, obstetrical adverse events, pressure ulcers. That means we're not turning patients every 2 hours. Central line bloodstream infections, catheter-associated urinary tract infections, drug interactions, blood clots, surgical site infections, and being on ventilators. And again, during the handoff, that is the time where 80% of medical errors happen. So if you have a loved one in the hospital and they are discharged home, that's called a handoff. And those times are the worst times to have medical errors. This is just a quick slide. I've worked with nurses who've made mistakes for about 15 years in the state of North Carolina. So I've learned a lot about why nurses make mistakes. A lot of them make them because they don't ask for help or they don't abide by their Nurse Practice Act. And they're short-staffed and they don't know policies or procedures. So this is another book written by Dr. Danielle Ofri, When We Do Harm. Also, this book is about medical errors by physicians. There is hope here in Asheville, North Carolina. We have tremendous physicians who are starting practices on lifestyle medicine. This is a physician named Dr. Brian Asbill. He was a cardiologist for 15 years, and he has now opened up his practice called Ruckus Healthcare to focus on the issues related to lifestyle. It's really important as an advocate that you get a copy of the patient's medical record. If you are attending to someone who you love in the hospital, it's good to ask the nurse to roll in the computer on wheels and ask he or she to read the medical record, read the progress notes that the physician's written. And if they've already come out of the hospital and you don't know what their diagnosis is, you can complete a release of information form. You have to have the patient sign that to get you that information. I want to just point out every single healthcare facility is always going to have a different authorization for release of information. This is Mission Hospitals. It's very cumbersome and not user-friendly. I always tell my patients to get a paper copy, especially because they'll send you home with a DVD. They don't ask you if you have a reader in your computer, so always ask for a paper copy. So you can get healthcare records from hospices, palliative care, skilled, or anywhere. And this is just our US government saying that we have a right to our healthcare information, going back to it is your right as an advocate, as a patient, to always ask for a copy of your medical records. And so many people in our country do not ask for medical records, and we need to do that. So one of the key things I tell my patients is to become an expert on yourself. You or the person you're advocating for, your family member, or whatever, you need to know what diseases you have. Why do you have those diseases? What medications are you taking? What's the doses? How often are they offered? What about lab work? So what a common piece of lab work that you would have for diabetes would to be to know what's your blood glucose, what's your blood sugar, or what is your A1C. Also to know who are your physicians, what is your normal blood pressure, what's your normal heart rate. Those are important to know. What's your weight, what's your allergies. And going back to what you guys are learning, what are your financials, what's your health insurance say, and do you have end of life forms like most forms or do not resuscitate forms? I always say to my patients to have 2 or 3 of those signed by your physician. When you have one copy of a most form or healthcare power of attorney form, and you take the most form to the hospital and it's copied, or a DNR form, they will not honor it, has to be the original. So I just get my patients to have 2 or 3 originals. It's always good to take a list of your medications with you to any place that you might be having health care. I keep one in my purse. If I were to faint because I was working too hard in the garden and I was taken to the hospital, nobody would know what meds I'm on. So again, never, never, never give in. If you have a significant complaint or you think someone that you're advocating for is being mistreated, there is something called the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And here in our region, every region in the country is going to have a Division of Health Service Regulation. So I have this number in my phone. It's a 1-800 number. It's a complaint intake health and healthcare personnel investigation section. I can't tell you how many times I've had to help patients lodge their complaint because it was an unsafe discharge, it was an unsafe medication error, it was an unsafe setting. There are many, many websites and books to assist you in helping you become a patient or a patient advocate. This is an app for the Mayo Clinic. I have this on my phone. I recommend that all my patients have this app in terms of helping you negotiate their healthcare system. And then the Institutes of Health, there are 27 Institutes of Health. So there's lots of different kinds of advocates in this world. I just want to point out that they may or may not have healthcare experience, and they may have had one bad experience, so now they think they're an expert. So it's really important to ask the person, if you're having an advocate work with you, what is your healthcare experience? I'm an RN patient advocate. If I'm going to have an advocate, I want them to be a registered nurse because they will understand the healthcare system, but there could be pharmacy advocates or whatever. And I like my advocates to have at least 5 to 10 years of experience in healthcare, and also a graduate of an associate's degree or higher with a healthcare background. You'll see different titles. A nurse navigator is assigned to a different cohort in a hospital. So you'll hear that term. You could, like at Mission Hospital, we have breast cancer navigators. So they're assigned to all the breast cancer patients in the hospital. There was a heart failure navigator at Mission Hospital. That position is no longer filled. There's also something called geriatric navigators. These can be licensed nurses or social workers, and they would work with that client about emotional concerns, making short and long-term plans, evaluate in-home needs, et cetera, et cetera. You'll hear that term. These people, they require, in order to take that exam as a geriatric navigator, you have to be a licensed nurse or a social worker. There's a new certification coming out called Board Certified Patient Advocate, BCPA. They now require a baccalaureate degree, but it can be in anything. And to assess your, if I were to sit for a nursing board certification, I have to submit all my transcripts. I have to submit my work history for the last 10 years. I have to have references. So for them, you just take a self-assessment and no background check. And this would be what that looks like. A care manager is someone who's also collaborating with patients and families, and you can take a certification and become a care manager. You're going to see that term. And then there's nurse case managers. Those usually happen to be hospital-based. There's also something called a discharge planner. They typically have a master's in social work or social work, a baccalaureate degree, and they're assigned to a cohort of patients in the hospital to help them be discharged from the hospital. Utilization reviewer is someone who's looking at your insurance. You'll see these other terms. So
Can I ask you a question about that? Or are you on a roll and you just want to finish that part, or?
Yeah. Oh, I was trying to finish by 5:30.
Oh, well, my question is this, in terms of those roles that you just scrolled by, which is that there's patient advocate-like people. They have different names, but they come with an institution. And that, I'm imagining, has pros and cons. But what you do, and maybe you can explain this, is you're like a private consultant patient advocate, so that a family could hire you or an individual could hire you and say, hey, Karen, will you be my healthcare agent? Can I put you on my healthcare agent form? Or can I put you on my call list so that when my family's in a situation where they need some advice about my end of life, you can step in and inform them from a neutral place?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, and so then how do people know the difference or see the difference between something that's going to get assigned by an institution versus something they need to go out and seek out? Is that a helpful distinction?
Yeah, so the reason I'm going through these types of people is that we are starting to see these types of people out in our community. So for example, there are people, so a nurse navigator will be in the hospital. A geriatric navigator, there are a few of those who are in private practice. So you could, when you go to your browser and click on patient advocate, you might have geriatric navigators pop up. You might have a board certified patient advocate pop up. You might have a care manager is usually assigned as an insurance person or in the hospital, and a case manager, and these people are in the hospital. And
how likely is it to be that folks can find someone who's deaf literate, who's willing to be, clear, honest, realistic about the choices of life and death, is not afraid of death, is willing to, be present in all of those tricky conversations? Like, how do you know that?
So you would ask them. So I would say the best thing, that one of the points of this presentation is for you to become an expert on yourself and to ask questions. How much experience have you had working with patients who are dying? How much experience have you had with working with people who've been transferred to hospice or they're dying at home? Those would be the questions I would ask.
So if a family were interviewing for this, they would check out the free resources that come with the institution, but then they might also check out the consultant independent resources that are not associated with these institutions, and they might get really different attributes.
Correct. So it's really important that you ask. That's one of the things I talk about here is if you get an advocate, that you ask, what is their experience? What are their credentials? How long have they worked in that role? What's their education? What's their experience? It's really important. That slide right there is important. And you can go here. Are all the people in the class from this area, Western North Carolina?
No.
Okay. So when you go to this website, to any website, and Google patient advocate, you can Google RN patient advocate or healthcare advocate. There are going to be some people who have websites who will pop up. And it's really important that when you interview them, you say, how many years experience do you have working as an independent practitioner? What's your healthcare education? Did you graduate from nursing school? How long ago? How many years experience? It's real important that you do that. Does that answer your question, Lee?
Yeah, and also I think, like we've just spent today working on the wish 1 and wish 2 of the 5 wishes, and the wish 1 is our healthcare agent, and the wish 2 is what treatments do we want or don't want. And we really were just contemplating and sinking into this place of like, the person that I want holding my hand and loving me may not be the person that needs to be fierce with the administration of the hospital. And so here's an opportunity to learn about patient advocacy, to take that assertive role that may not be appropriate, right? And so, and I'm guessing that you see that the patient advocate can come in and hold that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I want to do is I'm going to just fast forward a moment to the most gnarly things that happen in regard to the dying work. And I can't tell you how many times that we have patients who want to be a do not resuscitate, who only have a Xerox copy of their most form and they're not adhered to. So then the family has to scurry around and try to get one of those. Hospitals don't honor copies of those. Another tragic thing that happens is that patients are dying and they do not have their spouses or their loved ones sign on their joint accounts so they can access their funds. And it's a real mess. As people are dying, they're trying to understand how we're going to pay for a funeral, etc.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all of that paperwork
Good.
next time.
Good.
Yeah.
And then to ask for 10 death certificates. I don't know if you all talk about that, but that's important. And when someone dies in the hospital, this is kind of a gnarly thing. If there is a problem with that death, and it might be somebody's in a car wreck or they're found in their home dead, that's going to become a medical examiner's case. And then the person, when someone dies at like 3 o'clock in the morning, those medical examiners are covered by physicians who are technically not medical examiners. So they might be coming in to do that work in the absence of the person who works there, or they have someone at the hospital who doesn't know that. And sometimes getting a death certificate from a hospital can take a month or two. So this is another area where you can ask to speak to the hospital administrator to find out where are these death certificates.
Right. So I'm going to ask another couple questions and then I want to open it up for questions from other people. So how much does it cost and when is it good to get involved? Say that I don't have friends, I don't have family, like I want someone to guide my end of life in a good way that's really, based on my own values. When would I contact you for something like that? And how would I build relationship with you? And how much would that cost me? Can you give rough ideas of that?
Sure. So now is a time for you to start having a conversation with an advocate if you want that service. So for example, people find me, they find me on the website by word of mouth, and I do a lot of classes on these kinds of topics here. So people will say, Karen, I want you to come over and let's talk about my wishes, but I want to know what kind of person you are. What are your credentials? What's your experience? Can you give me 3 references and what do you charge? So my charge is $100 an hour. My first hour is free. I also do payment plans and I also do donations, and I've also taken chicken. So a lot of people aren't like that, but that's how I do it. So I don't want anyone to be without someone. But if you want me to, a lot of people just want to sign me up today. So I want you to be my healthcare power of attorney. So we have those kinds of conversations beforehand. They'll sign me up to be a healthcare power attorney. I have several clients like that, and I might not see them for 2 or 3 years, but we might just check in on the phone.
So they could be doing a class like this and say, I really want my spouse to be there for me emotionally, but I'm really going to get this kick butt person over here to be fierce around the things I want. And I'm going to enroll her, I'm going to pay, and then we're going to check in every couple of years. I'm not sick, I'm not dying, but we're going to just check in. And then my husband or my wife has her telephone number, and that's when she would sort of come on the scene, is when I see.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So I've just had a couple of clients die recently, and one of them chose to be cared for at home for a long time. And there are a lot of misconceptions about what hospice provides. So hospice does not provide 24/7 care. A lot of people think it does. And it's covered by your Part A Medicare, but they will pay for one visit the first week for 2 hours of an RN maybe 2 visits of a CNA. People don't understand that they have to come up with people to cover. So that's a big misconception. And so I put that in there. And then another thing that's emerging is when people want to die at home, they don't want to go to hospice. They don't want to go to a independent or a living, skilled or assisted living. There's a thing called a home care manager. So when someone is dying that's beloved to you, you still have to pay the bills. You have to cook. You have to clean. You have to take care of the dog. You have to work. You have to get gas. You have to do car payments, whatever. And then you have a dying person who's dear to you. So people are always overwhelmed with that when this happens. So there's home care managers that can be paid to help people coordinate all that staffing 24/7 and getting the right people in the home.
And a good patient advocate can give resources and support and options. I see. Okay. We don't have a whole lot more time, so let me just open this up to questions. If you want to stop sharing your screen.
I am.
Okay. I think we can see each other. So what questions, thoughts, comments do folks have for Karen while we have her for a few more minutes around patient advocacy? Linda.
Hi, Linda. Yeah.
Hi, Karen. This is amazing. And I'm glad it's recorded because it was way too much information, but it was really good. I actually have long-term care. So do you know if, I mean, I have to look at but does that cover some of this hospice? Because I just, from what you said, Medicare barely scratches the surface.
So Medicare, Medicare Part A will pay for the bed, and it will pay for all the supplies. It'll pay for the nurse and the CNAs, medicine. It'll care for, chucks and cleaning things. But it doesn't take care of caregivers. So in that respect, that would be good to ask your long-term care insurance provider about that, for example.
Okay, because I know they're supposed to fill in some of that. So I'll
Yes, definitely. Definitely. It's kind of quirky. It has to be ordered by the physician. Every policy is different. It's really good to talk to your insurance carrier about that.
Okay.
Mariah.
I was just going to ask, do you highly recommend getting as much of this probably lined up, like hiring your services or someone like it? Because what happens to people if they get to the point and they can't manage all this?
It's exactly a very excellent question. I've just been working with a family for a year, and as this man became progressively more ill and more ill, and he was a very sick person for a very long time. And the reason I share slides about the nursing shortage and CNA shortages is that we have a terrible nursing shortage and a CNA shortage in this country everywhere. So it's good to know, for example, I would, it's not too early to call staffing agencies and say, hello, my name is Marla, and I'd like to come in and just talk to you about what your agency does and how short of nurses and how short of CNAs are you doing, and where can I find other resources? So for me, with my client, we actually found several private caregivers in Western North Carolina who would go into the home because the agencies could not do that. So that's just something everybody needs to know about.
I just put Karen's website link in the chat, and I'd love to spend as much time with her as we can, but I'm also realizing we need to do our buddy system thing. And let's just do one more question. Does someone have a burning question they want to ask Karen, hopefully on a high level? Anyone else? Patient advocacy. This is really great, Karen, because it starts to open up the world of options. If people start to feel alone about, being guided, if they're not familiar, like you're saying, with the medical system, and even if they want to stay out of the medical system, say they want to die more naturally and at home, a patient advocate can really be a firewall for that, can't they?
Yes, yeah, they can. It's, yeah.
they can really try to make these decisions. Well, I think we should call in this context, but not in this context. And I'm going to go to the hospital with you so they don't put you on a ventilator and all, right? I mean, these are the things that that someone like you with your training can be this sort of stopgap for that. Okay, great. Any last thoughts?
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Maura.
Yeah, so much
Thank you.
love,
Thank you
Karen.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Love
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Love.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, let's all take a breath. Woo, she can talk fast. Woo. That was great. So how is that idea that there's resources there, some free, that might come with institutions and come with whatever worldview that is, and then some paid that might help you get what you want? How is this to hear all this?
Pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. Well, you might put on your checklist, to do a little digging around patient advocacy. I wouldn't don't let yourself get too overwhelmed with it. Just know that it's there. It's an option. There's people who do this. Karen is running a school that trains this whole next generation of people, and her, she really does. She will work for a family for nothing if they need it. Like, that's the kind of person a lot of nurses are, right? So yeah, just put it on your checklist to gently explore. You don't need to become an expert in all of this. Take what is relevant to you and throw the rest away. Don't get overwhelmed.
It's really helpful to have her, though. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really an emerging field. And, like many fields that are unregulated, it's the wild, wild west, right? So we have no idea, right? Accreditation this and that and the other, board certified, whatever that means. It's sort of like a doula or a midwife, right? You find someone that you like, you interview a few people, and you go with good enough. The most form is the medical orders and scope of treatment. We're going to be talking about the do not resuscitate, the most treatment. All the other paperwork is going to be in our course next time on the 17th. But what I want to do now is I want to do a buddy system pair up here. This is really helpful. And so if folks, you're each going to get a buddy. And if you know that you want to be buddies with someone, tell me now. Otherwise, I'm going to put breakout rooms randomly. Mariah, you're muted, love. I can't hear you.
If Trish will accept me, Trish DeGroot, I would like to buddy with her.
Is that okay with you, Trish?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so Trish and Mariah, I'm gonna put in room 1. Okay, so who else? Is anybody else? Linda, you want to buddy with someone?
Well, I'm not going to be here in 2 weeks, but I still would like to buddy with someone, but we need to keep that in consideration.
That's okay, because the buddy can be hopefully long-term.
Okay.
Hopefully it can be long-term. Jeannie?
Lisa and I are gonna buddy.
Lisa and Jeannie. Okay, so Linda, who do you want to buddy with?
I'd love to. Carolyn, would you like to buddy?
Okay, all right. So I'm going to put you there. All right, in room 2.
That would be lovely.
All right, room 3. Hold on, give me a second. I'm going to assign Lisa. Oh, Jeannie. Okay.
So I should borrow my keyboards for some of the person because she needs 2.
All right. So Susan and David, do you want to be each other's buddies, or would you rather have other buddies besides each other?
Well, don't you need us to I counted that there were an even number of people, but maybe that's wrong now because someone else just came in.
Yeah.
So we can buddy too.
We'd certainly like to buddy, unless you need us to buddy with others.
Yeah, if you need us to.
Let me see, that's a good question. So Heather and Mel, are you two okay if I put you together?
Sure.
Heather and Mel. Okay, great. I'm just trusting the divine synchrony here. And what about Trisha Bear and Mango? Are you okay being together?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Trisha Bear and Mango. And then Elle, where are you? Elle, are you okay being with Susan and David? It would be 3 of you. And that might be actually helpful because then Susan and David don't sink into their own whatever procrastination. They have someone outside of their little nests to get to. Is that okay with everyone?
As long as they don't mind a third wheel.
I think it's going to be great. All right. Are you okay with that, Susan and David? Okay, great. Do I have everybody right? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to send you off and it's not going to be long, but what you're going to do is you're going to exchange phone numbers and email addresses and talk a little bit about your checklist, literally 5 minutes, because we want to still have more to do as a group. And talk a little bit about what's on your checklist for the next 2 weeks. And even though you're not going to be there, Linda, that's okay. You know, prepare the next 2 weeks as if you were, okay? Like stay sort of in the timing alignment. Okay, and then we'll come back and wrap up.
I don't know. I think it's
Carolyn, you pushed the button too soon. You were just saying, can she say while we're still a small group?
I was just asking Aline something. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Are you saying you usually have really good internet, but for some reason it went down?
No, I think it was my computer and I don't know what.
Oh,
Yeah, it just crashed.
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So welcome back. So Aline's computer crashed while that was all happening. And is there a group that could use a third person that would welcome like a 3-person buddy system? It might work pretty well, actually.
Why not? We're fine. We'll do it.
Well, we're already 3.
You're already 3.
I don't mind if Trisha's okay with it.
Okay, so Aline, you want to join Mango and Trisha Bear with a buddy system?
Great, sounds good.
Okay, so Trisha and Mango, why don't you put your contact information to Aline in the chat right now, so you have a way to contact each other. So what would be helpful for buddies to do for each other?
Maybe set up regular meeting?
Hey. Regular meeting sounds great. What else? Like a phone call, make a phone call date. What else? Go through the checklist. Different people are going to get stuck at different places, right? So be sure to listen to what your buddy is needing. Like they might be, you know, uncertain or nervous or anxious about something that you're not. And so it's like, oh, okay, I can listen to you there. I can support you there. And then you might be stuck in a place that they're not. Or you might be stuck in the same place. And then that's an opportunity. Let me just share this last slide. Was someone wanting to say something? Okay, So your suggested homework and, work with your checklist is, go and do the Go Wish. If you feel compelled to do the Go Wish, it's super helpful. You're talking to friends and family, or at least setting up these conversations to have. You're talking to possible healthcare agents, thinking about possible healthcare agents. You're contemplating Wish 1 and Wish 2. Reading, researching, listening to things that you feel excited about. Get with your buddy and work with your checklist.
It's good we have 2 weeks.
It's good you have 2 weeks. Someone was asking me about the next one of these. I think it's going to be January. When we're together again on the 17th, I will have dates for January so you can pass it on to your friends. Because usually when people take this class, they're like, oh my God, I need my healthcare team to take this class, right? Or I need my spouse to take this class, or I need my friends to take this class. So I think it'll be in January. And then this is the one that is the Walking Towards a Good Death. It is the internal preparation in November. So it's also on my website. Now, does everybody understand how to get to my resource page? So I put that link in the email. I put it, oh, it says Aline. Okay.
I know, that's my computer. Ignore that.
Okay. It's a link in the chat. It's in the email. And so if you don't know how to get to my resource page, let me know and I can walk you through it. Is everybody good on how to get to that web page where the resources are? Great. Okay. Susan, you had asked and the link was in the chat. Great. Other thoughts about how buddies can support each other? You thought you were going to take this 8-hour class and be done with everything, right? Find out it's just the beginning.
They're like calling an attorney.
Right? Right? Yeah.
I'd say like a little bit of potential gentle accountability, right? Like say, hey, I want to check in with you when I've done this so I can celebrate, or whatever works for people. I prefer gentle accountability.
Maybe have a long-term goal for getting 1 step done or 2 steps or whatever goals you want to make.
Yeah, I think the dates categories in the checklist are helpful, which is like the day you want to start it, the day you want to finish it, and that you can put that on your calendar. And if you can share that with your buddy, then your buddy can say, hey, I noticed that deadline is coming up. How's it going?
Perfectly.
What else? What else is alive for folks?
We're almost done.
Confusion or concern about, or excitement or any emotions about reaching out to people to have these conversations? Is that alive for folks? Yeah, anything anybody wants to speak about? Blaming it on your homework is always a fallback, for sure. Do that. I have homework. I have a buddy I'm accountable to. I have a class I'm accountable to. I have to have this conversation.
Step by step, step by step.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm just really delighted about the buddy, especially because I probably won't be here in 2 weeks because this is so much. And I'm so glad to stay connected. And we've already discovered in like 3 minutes, we have so much in common. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, because it all of this feels completely overwhelming. And yet I feel I've been really exhausted and I feel more enlivened than I have in a while. So something about this, even though it's so much, feels so important.
Wonderful. I love hearing that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how the conversation about death really does, it makes us really present. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but the 4 hours, it goes by like that.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. So that's, that's that can hopefully be fuel for you to feel more confident having these conversations with other people in your life, because you know really what the outcome is, which is it's very opening. It's very heart opening. And not everyone's going to feel that way. So it may not go always that way, but other thoughts, comments, questions?
It seems like the checklist is more appropriate after the second class because a lot of stuff is about paperwork and getting paperwork in order. Am I correct in thinking that way?
I mean, I think you can use the checklist for to break down a lot of what happened today, right? Which is like talk to 2 friends that might be healthcare agents, talk to my kids, talk to my, my family, contemplate, research the end of life stuff, the life prolonging measures that I think I might want, listen to that podcast, see if there's patient advocates in my area, so you can add those to the list. The checklist is a template that you can alter and make your own.
What's the podcast? There's a podcast.
Well, it was this sort of Radio Lab podcast that I had talked about 9 out of 10 doctors not wanting anything. So, it's not a requirement. It's just if it piqued your interest, or
Is there a link to that?
What's that?
Is there a link to that you have for us?
It's on my resource page.
Oh, okay, great.
Spend a little time with my resource page because I've really carefully curated all of those links to really be specific to this class. And so a lot of what comes up is, and that have been recommended by other participants in the class, I've really, I put those things on that list. So spend a little time with that. Add that to your checklist if that feels like a calling to you. You might search your podcast feed and see who's talking about death. Am I interested in what they have to say? Get a little inspiration. My friend and co-teacher Mary Lane, she does this subscription project called Making Friends with Death, and she's interviewing a new person every month, and then with a Q&A, and it's really amazing. These fabulous people getting on there who are working with death, and these interviews are incredible. So that's another really great resource.
Linda and I both are part of that, and we highly, I know, recommend it.
Yeah, it's really good.
One thing I just thought am I muted? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been doing research for 10 years on people's final words, and I wrote a book called Words at the Threshold. I'm actually the world's leading expert on final words, right? Pretty crazy. So I'm gonna put my email in, and if anybody wants a PDF of my book as a gift, I would be happy to send you a PDF of my book, Words at the Threshold, about people's final words.
Oh, thank you.
I just thought of that now. I thought, well, why not just send it to everyone if y'all would like that? So I'll do that real quickly because I don't want to hold up everybody now.
Thank you. And Mango just posted a book called Terrible. Thanks for asking.
What a great title. Okay.
Podcast. I just said a really good one, but I meant podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Got it. It's Terrible. Thanks for asking. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. Thanks for offering, Lisa.
Yeah, you bet. If you're interested, I'd love to share what the work I've been doing for 10 years, and maybe it would inspire or help in some ways. So
Yay.
It has inspired and helped me. So thank you.
Yeah. Any last questions? Any last thoughts? I know this is a lot. I can send you the recording so you could, passively listen to it, absorb another layer, get with your buddy. So we're not here next week. We are here in 2 weeks, the 17th from 2 to 6. Anything else? I'll stay here for a little while if folks want to chat, but also feel free to go. 6. Bye, sweetie. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
It was wonderful.
Y'all.
Bravo.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Lee.
Yay.
Thank you.
So Lee, Carolyn here. I'm going to stay for a sec. I do have a question. Because, without violating Linda's privacy either, we both happen to be single. And even when you just did the talk to friends, ask a family member, I don't have anybody. And so I have the blessing, and after hard work, I can pay for a patient advocate, but it's still not the same thing as somebody, even emotionally, to have somebody come hold your hand. Now, I have some friends, but most people I know are not local. Or they work or whatever. But again, that idea of somebody that would have those little nitty gritty, and I have a will and a trust and all that with my brother, and that's fine. But again, this context of what it's like to be on your own and not in a community is still, it's a big deal.
Yes, I hear you. I hear the concern, and it happens here in this class a lot. And I think there's opportunities and challenges with that. And I will give you another pool of resources is this whole emerging death doula, right? Have you heard of it?
I wrote that down, thinking about that.
Yeah, so death doulas are graduating by the dozens from death doula schools, and yet the market and the consumer awareness has not caught up yet because people don't understand what that is. Now, a death doula could be a 22-year-old that just went to death doula school and would be willing to go to a home and wash some dishes for a family who was tending to someone who was dying. Or a death doula could be someone with 50 years of nursing experience and worked in hospice and really can take someone through the dying process. It all depends on what they're sort of similar to what Karen was saying, what their experience is. So the death doula community is a beautiful way to tap into that. And I hear you. I hear the conundrum that you don't have that kind of community around you. And yet you might be surprised if you reached out in your whatever regional community, if there's other women in your situation. I mean, there's many of us in that situation who aren't partnered and don't want to be partnered. And yeah.
Thank you.
That was kind of my question. Is a death doula kind of a substitute for the patient advocate?
Not really. They're different categories. The death doula tends to be focused on caring for the family or the person dying in a support role, much like a birth doula, right? A birth doula would come in and help clean up around the house and hold the baby while the mama takes a shower, or be there at the birth. They're an assistant of sorts. Now, some death doulas have training, have nurse training and have worked as nurses, others have not. It really sort of spans the gap, but mostly death doulas are not being fierce with the hospital administration, much like patient advocates are sort of the interface between the patient and the whole hospital world. Death doulas are death literate people who can step in at different levels of skill and expertise.
So if you wanted to really be home at the end of your life, death doula would be the person who would be present, depending upon qualifications.
Yeah. Could be, yeah. Even if you were in a facility, you could hire a death doula also. Yep. We'll talk a little bit more about death doulas next time, but yeah, I hear you, and I think this is it's ripe. Your situation and many of our situations is really ripe for how to create systems that are more holistic, because not all of us are in families or have children. That's absolutely true.
Or I am probably the one of my entire circle of people that is not the medical model. So I love my brother and I have people I trust, but they're medical model. And even my concern with patient advocates being ex-RNs, there's still that medical model that would have to have conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Karen, was really speaking so much about, she has a lot of disdain, as you can probably tell, for the systems, for the ill care systems, right? So I'm pretty sure that if I sent someone to her who was like, keep me out of that system at all costs, she would be your gal. Like, she could do that. She could totally do that. she's also literate in all the cancer drugs and all the this drugs and all the that drugs. But if you said to her, I don't care what you have to do, run me over with the car, I'm not going to the hospital, she would take that on too.
That's real. It's kind of giving us permission to kind of ask these bigger.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. No, and you'd be surprised, even acquaintances that you might have if you say, hey, have you been thinking about this? What it could form an interesting bond.
Okay, thank you.
I'm really glad you said all that, Carolyn, and you can send anything you want about me because, but we're very similar.
We were actually, she's California, I'm California, we're both single, it's like, there's a layer there, even if we're totally resilient and independent at this level of being ill or, can be an issue.
Oh yeah.
I've been researching it for a long time. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Bye.
Anything
Go ahead.
else?
Thank you. I'm going to take off now.
Me too. Hi, Linda. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
y'all.
Thank